and teachers here to present. We didn't want them staying later in the night than necessary.
Yeah.
So I certainly appreciate your flexibility.
Yes.
And I'll say a quick introduction, unless Melissa, did you want me to do it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So the Special Education Advisory Committee, as the board and the community know, has been a very important piece for all of us. It's been very important to me personally and professionally. I've been very pleased with how Laura and Tessa have stepped up on this, and Marie Angela is now with us as of this week, so she'll be very active in this going forward. So we've got a great team leading our work on special education. And I think, as you'll hear, this is an excellent update. It's a point in time. It's not an outcome discussion yet. Let me stress it. This is not an outcome discussion. But given how important this is to all of us, we felt kind of at this point to let you get an update from TESFA and his colleagues as to where the advisory committee is. Once we get past into January, February, March, we will have more of an outcome, not final for you, because my final comment is this, as I've heard from Laura, TESFA, this work will be ongoing for a while, not just this year, for multiple years. And that's was the best news to my ears when I heard people who said, yes, we got to really stay on this. So I really appreciate that. So, TESFA?
All right. So let me I want to thank especially my two partners here, Aaron Dolan, Amanda Kuplis, and they'll speak for themselves as well. In addition to the 17 people that have been involved in this advisory committee from start to finish, they have been super, super impactful partners and helpful to move this work forward. And to echo sort of what Dr. McCursey is saying, this is an ongoing journey, right? So there is no definitive end date to the exact mission we're doing. There might be definitive end dates to certain sub-projects, but as far as the overall work, there is no end date. It's a continuous improvement model, and we want to keep that frame of reference when we're thinking about everything we're doing moving forward. So,
No, I can do it for you.
it's all good. All right, so just quickly, this is the origins and evolutions of this committee. We had, and I think there's a slide missing from Dr. Katzman's report, was the original, which should be there, or there was a bullet missing. Then we moved to inclusive schooling. During that time, we got hit with COVID. Once we somewhat recovered and came back to school, we had a long-term planning committee. And the origin of that was the work with Kristen Kumar, myself. There was, I want to say, close to 20 educators involved with that. That included administrators, teachers, just primarily administrators and teachers. And some of the work we did within there, we talked about developing a flow chart, a vision of for special education, looking at report cards, culture shift, how to increase independence, how to support student behaviors. Now, some of the points for improvement with that model and what we talked about looking into this subcommittee was there was a heavy membership of administrators. So if we had 20 on that call, maybe there were 10 administrators, maybe 5 teachers, 6 or 7 other members of the faculty. So it wasn't, the conversations and the development of the model wasn't as authentic as we wanted to. So we said, all right, let's relook at it. Let's really try to fine tune who's on this team. And that led us to our current advisory committee. So we had a lot of good work there, but the conversations weren't flowing or being as productive as possible for various reasons. And we really want to make sure this was an authentic process, and we want to make sure that we had the voice of various constituents. So next. So I shared some of the old ideas that we talked about when we talked about behavior, when we talked about long-term planning, we talked about report cards. Those were just general ideas we talked about, and they were great ideas, but they were, like I said, very heavily coming from the top down and not as organic or as heavily involved with different voices as we would want to. So go to the next slide. So we spoke, and it started with Melissa Szymanski, myself, Laura, and we said, what is our overall purpose? Regardless of where we want to go, what do we want to do at the end of the day? And we came to the conclusion we want to improve student outcomes through any means necessary, through whatever methods we decide, but our primary focus at the end of the day, our target is to improve those outcomes. So we had to redesign our team. And this is our current team. This is our team of 17.
Who's
well
Jordan?
Chosen. Well
Yeah,
chosen.
who's Jordan on this?
There is no Jordan. We're all Jordan.
There's only one Jordan.
Right. And these are our partners. And want to stress that to the T. This is not the TESFA committee. This is not the Laura committee. These are my partners, and I value and I respect every piece of input they added to this group and the authenticity that they brought to this group. So this is the team, and I thought about it, and I don't really have time. I want to do like a personal anecdote for everybody on the team, but we don't have time. But maybe the next board meeting when we present, give me 5 minutes. I'd like to say something highly valuable about everybody involved in this committee.
Tesfa, before you move on, can you,
Sure.
sorry to interrupt, can you just say, do the teachers represent, for the people who might not know,
You wanna
the
go back?
teachers represent all the schools?
Yes, so our teachers we have from, that's a great question, K through 12, from Hillside, FMS, high school. We reached out, we said, hey, let's get a teacher aides and teacher assistants. I want to give a huge shout out to that cohort of, of our team. They are hands-on with our students more than me, more than Laura, more than anybody else, and they are on the ground in the weeds with the families, with the students, and they are a key piece of the lifeblood in our school community, especially thinking coming from COVID and the work they did. So this is a gamut of parents from Hillside to FMS. We have administrators, high school, district-wide, and teachers K through 12. So we really want to spread it. I mean, we couldn't get everybody, but we tried to get as much of a wide range of voices, opinions, and thought partners as possible.
And just sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
the teachers are also not all special ed.
Yes.
Right.
Sorry, if you could bring that back again, that's a great point. We also want to stress that we have general education, we have ENL. We want to get various voices of different constituents in our community. We're of the general belief of whatever is going to work for a student with an IEP can benefit all students. Our students with our IEPs are our main focus, but we want to make sure that we benefit the greater good for everybody. But our primary focus is how we're going to make things better for our students with IEPs. All right, so next slide. All right, so our work. So we really started getting into the really knee-deep in the weeds of this in July of this year. At that point, we said, all right, let's plan out some meetings. And the end date of never, that is our continuous mission. It's going to be constant. I would like, in an ideal world, hey, whether my last day is tomorrow or 20 years from here, to leave something better than when I came here, right? To leave a mark or leave something for the greater good of the kids, the students, the whole school body. And that's why we have to constantly sort of refine where we're at. We're doing great things. As a district, things are moving in a good way, but we want to refine what we're doing. So we looked at an improvement science model. These are the 6 principles of improvement science. I don't need to read it for everybody. We can leave it there for a half a second. Let people take a look, analyze, take it in. We go to the next slide. So where we just finished was our inquiry phase, right? We wanted to look at a problem of practice. Within that, we want to look at data. We want to look at history. We want to look at culture. We want to look at everything that makes a school function. From a special ed perspective, we really want to take our time and dig deep with inquiry. And I'm going to let Erin speak to some of the data points. I'm going to sip some water, then I'm going to come right back.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, I'm kind of slow here with my boot. I'm Erin Dolan. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a special education teacher at Hastings High School, as well as the special ed coordinator at Hastings High School. So I just wanted to thank you all for having me and including me, Tesfa. But some of the things that we discussed when we came together in our early stages were some of the data that we already had. So we referred to before the Urban Collaborative Report, or the Katzman Report, as some of you might know that also. These were things that we already had, so as Dr. McCursey said, I believe it was last year, we might as well look at the stuff we already have and then move forward with looking at some newer data. We also looked at the Inclusive Schooling Report. This is stuff we did over the summer, so we really had the time to kind of delve in small groups and work together and look at some of the key themes that came out of these reports. We also looked at the New York State report card. That would be the NYSED data. So we looked at some of the themes that appeared there when it comes to the student body in general, as well as students with disabilities. And then we looked at the panorama surveys that the students have taken several times now, I believe. But we looked at that as a whole. kind of the whole student body, and then we looked at it in subcategories such as Hillside, Farragut Middle School, and the high school, and we kind of looked at especially the subgroup of students with IEPs. So that was some of the data that we originally looked at, and then we actually were able to delve into some peer-reviewed research on this topic, and there's several different peer-reviewed journals here that we were able to take a look at within our small groups, seeing a variety of different kind of perspectives on special education, on the way students view themselves, on kind of student body as a whole. We were able to look at a bunch of different journals, and that was really kind of a nice way to kind of come together and look at this, you know, the professionals and the scholars on this and what they were saying, so we can base any decision going forward on research-based journals. And kind of just overall what we found out, we're kind of looking now at what is a key challenge our students with IEPs are facing, and how can we empower them to address these problems. So those were kind of our problems of practice, and we just had that defined down there as performance disparities for students with IEPs. Thanks.
So I'll jump in.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mr.
So
Oh, I think, was there a question? I'm sorry.
No, I said thank you.
Oh, okay.
I want to stress all.
I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Are you going to show us at all any of the data points that stood out to you at all?
I mean, I think internally, I don't think we had that part of the board presentation,
Okay.
but like those were internal
Thank you,
conversations.
yeah.
And, you know, we had a conversation, so I had the link for every single data point, but I'm like, I don't know if I want to
Yeah,
put that there
right,
and
I get
overwhelm
it.
people, but if you want it, I can.
Overall, you saw
Yeah.
some sort of correlation between.
Yeah, we're gonna get
Got
to,
it.
I'm sorry.
I'll
Yes,
stop
we're gonna get
talking.
there.
Sorry, Tessa.
No, it's all right. So just to go back to Aaron's point, when we were looking at data, right, and we're looking, you know, at these research articles, we're looking at the peer-reviewed articles, but I also want to stress that we want to get the teacher's voice because, you know what, they're experts too, right? So I'm not going to say, all right, you know, we're going to read this from, you know, Harvard Law School and what you go through day to day is not as valuable. You know, they're experts too, so we also empower them to say, hey, if you have any articles you want to bring or any best practices or anything from your perspective, bring it to us because they are experts. You know, they are experts in education, they're experts in differentiation, they're experts in your children, you know, so, and I say that to the community. I know I'm looking at the board, but I'm hoping I'm speaking to the broader community, you know, with everything I'm saying. So we came to a theory of action, right? And initially, our theory of action is if we focus on improving academic performance with students with disabilities, then our students will feel supported, comfortable, and confident to pursue whatever path is best suited for their individual success. So, you know, having real, and legitimately, I want to stress this, our conversations are very authentic. If you could just go back. Yeah, thanks. They're very authentic. And, you know, we set norms in the beginning where it's like, this is a safe place. And I value, and I'm going to repeat and trust everything that's going in our conversations. Emily Keogh, part of our group, she said, hey, are we sort of looking at this backwards? In the sense of, do we want, if students feel supported, comfortable, and confident to pursue their path that's best suited for their individual success, then we'll see academics outcomes improve. We'll see their academic outcomes improve. So we want to see if we could flip that, and if we put their feelings and how they feel about themselves first, will we see the improvement of their academic outcomes? And, you know, I think Emily was a key piece to having us really think about how are we looking at things. And, you know, just in conversations with teachers and dealing with various people throughout the district, you know, I do think there is a huge piece of stress that students feel, and it's very hard for them to keep up with a lot of the rigor, a lot of the expectations. And then if you throw on top of it, hey, I have a disability, it's a double hurdle that we really have to fight. And I really think we're going to lead to our aim where we want to improve how students feel about themselves. How can we build resiliency in them? How can we build that sort of fight in them to make sure they get what they need? So, if we go to the next slide. So we had drafted an aim, right? And our overall aim for our project currently, we want to research, we want to figure out how, why, what, when we can increase student self-efficacy. That is our overall aim. We want to look to improve student self-efficacy. So all the research, all the inquiry led us here. Now, if we go back to our theory of action, because, you know, things are constantly evolving, it's an ever-moving process, we said, hey, let's look at that a little bit deeper. And then Erin came up with something, and if we can go to the next slide, I'll let Erin speak to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what did I come up with? I did. Right. So when we were talking about this, we were throwing words around. We were trying to figure out how to best kind of encapsulate what we were discussing into like a nice statement. But the statement that we currently are comfortable with and want to move forward with, again, like Tesfa said, this is
the language, but overall, this is the.
Yeah. This is, this is what we're with right now. If we increase students' self-efficacy, then we will improve their academic performance and they will feel supported, comfortable, and confident to pursue whatever path is best suited for their individual success. So we really wanted to put the emphasis on student self-efficacy because I, for one, it wasn't sitting right for me to put the emphasis solely on academic performance. That to me, just as a special educator and as a person in the schools and in the community, it wasn't sitting right for me. So I really wanted, I stressed kind of the focus to be on student self-efficacy, and I think that we really kind of came together around that.
And I think, Amanda, you're going to talk about it a little bit when we started talking about finding the superpower, and Amanda was very influential with sort of pushing us too from just, a parent perspective and saying, all right, you're seeing this here, this is what I'm seeing, and it sort of came full circle, and I mean, she's going to speak for herself, obviously, but it was, sorry.
So are you able to, I know what I'm thinking about when you say self-efficacy, but are you able to bring out your thought process more, and so that at least myself or the community would be able to understand what are the delineated aspects of what you mean by self-efficacy?
It's so funny that you mentioned that because
It's a good moment.
I feel vindicated in this moment because I said the same thing when we were talking about this. Everyone kept saying self-efficacy, and I was sitting on my computer saying define self-efficacy, just because I really wanted to make sure that everybody had an idea of what we meant by that, and to avoid kind of throwing around the jargony words and not really getting to like the crux of what we meant. And we found a definition from, I forget, Melissa.
One
Yeah.
of the gold stars. Of
Of a social psychologist, right?
Oh, nice.
And I would have to pull up the definition so I don't totally butcher it. But we did actually discuss this and talk about the importance of this and the importance of being comfortable in advocating for yourself and making your own decisions and feeling comfortable to be able to kind of choose the path that you are seeking to go forward with. But I feel so happy that you said that.
I want to jump in because
Yeah,
I'm
please.
also so happy that came
Speak
up. I
to that,
felt like
yeah.
there was an authentic, very authentic laughing moment in our recent advisory committee meeting. And it was, it just pulled everything together. And I think, Erin said it very well, the committee rallied around it. It's like we want to stay away from jargon. We also want to be authentic to the data, to the peer-reviewed research, to our beliefs and values. And this idea came up, you may even recall in the Panorama survey data, the self-efficacy is a measure of like, if we believe we can achieve, then we will achieve. Like it's the belief in being able to accomplish. And I don't want to give a spoiler about the next step because I know there will be some conversation about that in a moment. But that doesn't just mean, cheerleading for children. Like there are layers to making sure that we cultivate that.
Thank
And
you.
Dr. Lynn, I can read you the definition that.
Oh, please, yeah. I didn't want to totally butcher it,
It
but
says
yeah.
it refers to an individual's belief in his or her capacity to execute behaviors necessary to produce specific performance attainments. Self-efficacy reflects confidence in the ability to exert control over one's own motivation, behavior, and social environment. And that was by Van Doren.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wish I had that memorized, but I'm sorry.
1977.
Right. So just to kind of wrap up, this has been such a positive experience, as Tesfa mentioned before, such a great group of colleagues. And I really enjoyed the fact that we were able to get the voices of various stakeholders and all feel comfortable kind of sharing. I know that I'm someone, when I have something on my mind, I have to share it. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of speak candidly with one another, and have viewpoints from people from Hillside that I might not get to speak to often, or even FMS. So that was really kind of invaluable for me, especially the people who work with our students on a day-to-day basis. I really felt like they had really great insight to offer to the group. And just as a member of this department, you know, I know, well, you all just granted me tenure, so thanks so much. So I'm going to be here a while, so I really have a vested interest in kind of where the department goes as we move forward, and I'm happy and really excited to implement any changes or any kind of any which way that we take things. And just looking forward, something that we had talked about at the very end of our recent meeting was what success is for a student. And I think that this is really an important thing, especially as someone in the high school setting, as kids are getting ready to move forward after graduation. What does success look like? And I, again, talked about defining what success is and how it's not the same for every student. And how we can really celebrate that and really find ways to celebrate students' successes in whatever path that they're going to take, whether it be college or trade school or whatever their path is. So that was something that we really want to continue looking at. And I will pass things over to Amanda, I believe. But thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? So I'm Amanda, and I'm coming in as I'm the parent perspective in this. I am the VP of SEPTA for Hillside. I also have 2 children in the district, one with an IEP at Hillside, one who does not have an IEP and is at the middle school. I'm also a graduate of Hastings. Navigating the school system with a child who receives services is overwhelming. Many parents, such as myself, walk into the district unaware of what acronyms mean what accommodations you should be asking for, when you should be asking for them. Advocating for your child can be terrifying. What if you're not asking the right questions? Maybe you're pushing too much. Maybe you're not pushing too much. Do you have to pay for outside providers to help your child succeed? These are a lot of questions parents ask themselves. So when I was asked to be part of this committee, I have a chance to look at our system, to break down what is currently in place and see how we can improve it. I definitely jumped at that opportunity. Before continuing, I wanted to highlight some of the successes that I have had at Hillside that also relate to the topics that we have discussed in our group, such as co-taught classes and station learning. I think that this has been an essential part to the success that we have had, and can contribute to the success of many students who are getting to learn in smaller groups. I don't think that a lot of our population does really well sitting in front of in a large group learning as a part of a big whole group versus small individual groups where you get a choice, a voice. Project-based learning, some of the best and most cherished learning experiences and most memorable experiences have been through project-based learning. Having the opportunities where a teaching method is to actively engage students in real world and personally meaning projects have certainly stood out for us. Teaching organization, having a class that is organized both in instruction with the teachers as well as the actual space. A great ICT classroom is when 2 teachers are true partners and there is no differentiation of whether the teacher is a gen ed teacher or a special ed teacher. Team collaborations, such as meeting with your teachers, OTs, counselors, all meeting together. When educators are all connecting and speaking with each other, it is beneficial to everyone, and goals get met. And then if things need to be adjusted, they're communicated. There is a wonderful book by Ed Young, another Hastings person, that it just spoke to me when I think of this. Knowing in part may make a fine tale, but wisdom comes from seeing the whole. After being part of this group, in the past few weeks, we were asked to look at special education by discussing systems we have in Hastings, as well as looking outside of our district. One of our activities was to read articles about special education, looking at integration, co-teaching, how to, learning disabilities affect relationships and confidence. After reading, we asked questions around the room, and these were some of the main topics that stood out for me and can be relatable for all of our students. Do students feel confident? Do they feel successful in their own way? Can they advocate for themselves? Do they feel supported by peers? Are they emotionally being supported? Do they have confidence or feel confident? When we look at all these topics and think of ways we as a district can better support our learners, we ask the question of how. In our group, we explored some suggestions, with one of the biggest goals being self-advocacy. These are some ideas that are beneficial to all students in the district. Provide programs to allow students to learn how they learn. Give them the tools to self-advocate and organize at an early level, so by the time a Hillsider goes to middle school, they have an advantage of knowing how to open a locker, keep their assignments organized, use a timer, have a digital organizer, use a computer to write their assignments. The same goes with middle schoolers going to high school. By giving students the ability to know how they learn, they will be able to self-advocate for themselves and navigate through the school more successfully. Help children find success in new ways by creating programs and opportunities where students can find their strength and passion and celebrate them. Hastings has a wonderful athletic, music, and art program. It would be great to find additional programs to provide children's new opportunities, to find something that they might be interested, such as science and technologies. By finding these outlets, this will also help children let them find their own communities, to find peers with similar interests and create new ways to connect with the students. That being said, there have been conflicts with students with IEPs and or additional services. It often conflicts with times of alternatives that are being offered. This is an extremely disappointing, as this does not offer an equitable experience for all the children and often hinders them from taking something that they feel confident and successful in. Create more small learning and project-based opportunities in the upper schools, allowing children to showcase strengths in smaller groups, giving them the confidence to speak within a smaller group and contribute, to create more opportunities for different learning styles to be supported. Lastly, in our group, Melissa S. mentioned students finding their strengths, their superpower. This sticks with me because I do believe that our deficits oftentimes become our strengths. If you give children ownership of how they learn and show them the tools to help them succeed, then they learn to self-advocate for themselves as well as be comfortable with who they are.
So,
Thank you.
bring everything full circle. Last slide. So our next steps, right? So we've done our inquiry, we've done our research, and now we need to figure out how do we improve self-efficacy. That answer I do not have right now, and our committee, we're going to look to find it. And hopefully by the next time we meet, we'll have a definitive answer of, hey, this is what we need to do it. I am hoping, praying, whatever that answer is, that everybody here will be in support and say, hey, this is what we need and how do we do it. You know, side note, just my hope, like I said, is, you know, by the time, you know, I was just speaking to Gus outside. I'd never met him before, and we're talking. He's talking about his aspirations and things he wants to do, and he's doing wonderful things. Now, yeah, give it up for him. What I hope is that there are other kids from the demographic I represent that could be at this seat, and whether they're going to college, whether they're learning a trade, whether they're going to work, that they're represented here as well. You know, and he is a great vision of success, but there's other visions of success that are available for other students, and that is my hope, that we could represent that more. You know, that at the end of the day, you know, shout out to you, but there are other kids that are doing great, and we need to see their faces, hear their voices, whether they have a disability or not. If we can incorporate that more, that would be great. I think that might be it. So when we come back together, like I said, and you know, I'm in full transparency, I'm a very transparent person. I'm incapable of lying. When, you know, we met with Bill and I, two things. I said, hey, I want this to be authentic. I don't want this to be a review of a review of a review. Like, we've done that already. I want to move forward. I want to think about what we can do. Like I said, by the time I come here, I just found like my first gray hair. So when I have more gray hair, hopefully there'll be one of my kids here, one of my, kids with a disability here. And they're like, hey, I remember you used to come to my class and now you look old. And it would be great if we could have that broader range of representation. But what would be even better if we could have a student advocate for themselves to say, hey, this is why I need to sit here. That would be my goal. 2 quick plugs. There is a SEPTA community conversation for the high school tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. And there is the affinity group movie night Friday, I believe, at 5 o'clock. And we are done, and we are open for any questions if you have.
5 p.m. or 5 a.m.?
5 p.m. There you go. 8:30 a.m. for the SEPTA high school community conversation.
Before any questions, I just want to thank you guys. I mean, when I clicked open this report, some reports are just reports, but the authenticity and the energy really came through to it. And when I went through the links of the articles, that whole topic of self-efficacy, which we were talking about before the meeting, it just shined through. Like, it was just, things just look authentic. And I want to thank Tesfa, Laura, Stolen, Ms. Capillas. It's
And the 17.
I'm sorry, the whole team. The whole team. It's yeah, it's a great start, and I think a lot of people are happy to see it, and happy to see it particularly in this way. So
I hope it was 17. I hope I counted right.
I want to thank Amanda, because I'm also a parent with a child with specific needs. I like to call it that way. And you really captured a whole lot. I've had conversations with other parents with kids with specific needs, and it's about finding how to address the specific need that they need to succeed, and you captured it so well as a parent for the community, and I want to thank you for it because it was really broad.
Man, she really pushed us to, and not just Amanda, but specifically when we're talking about what does success look like, and that's a long-term ideological change we have to shift, but I'm going to keep mentioning success looks different for everybody. Not everybody's on the college path. Not everybody, and there's nothing wrong with that. And once we start demystifying that, I think we'll be in a much better place. And that's not to degrade college. We're all college graduates, most of us here, and I value college. I value education. I think none of us would be here if we didn't value education. But intelligence is different for different people, and you could display your intelligence in different ways, other than reading, writing, and arithmetic, and we could find out how we could channel that, and not only channel that, but more celebrate that, right? Like, those kids can be on the buzzer. Those kids can be, I don't know, whatever sort of advertisements we have to celebrate success. That's where I would love to go, and I'm hoping we can keep this energy with this group. And
Hear, hear.
One last thing, and you said it before. Truly, everything that helps our special ed students, when you start going through these articles and reading and learning, it becomes a true whole picture thing, right? It really does. So whether or not it's a small unit of students, it helps everyone. And the way we all learn, because I do, like I mentioned, I have a gen ed student, and she's been in ICT classrooms, and she has excelled exponentially those years because of the additional resources that she had at her fingertips. So it really, truly is a wonderful thing for all students.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing? So I don't mean to say it in a negative way, but education cannot be assumed that it's only housed in going to college, because we even educate our own kids at home. Education is beyond school systems. And so, again, I like the fact that once that we demystify that, and even being a college, that's where I work, we are creating programs that will accommodate all the learning trajectory, vocational, name it. Vocation is education. There is academia is not rewarding intelligence. This is not about intelligence, because we cannot literally measure the several types of intelligence that we have, and this is factual. But when we try to narrow down education as this particular process of achieving, then everybody else becomes the outskirt of it. It's not, and we need to create that culture that says that, you know what, if I'm using my hands more, of course your brain needs to inform your hands, and that in itself is a form of intelligence. So I like that demystifying and creating a way to make sure that all kids find their superpowers. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you all so much.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure. Oh,
Sorry. I was
Sorry.
just waiting for everybody else to talk. Just very quickly, and if you don't know these numbers off the top of your head, that's fine. What percentage of our student body has IEPs?
I know the number of students we roughly, I know we have over 300, I don't know.
I think it's 16% now.
Yeah.
It's a little bit less, it depends if you're including CPS.
Right, including CPSC is over
Yes,
300, without
CPSC
it's 293.
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're under 300 including CPSA.
No,
This-
over 300 including CPSC, I believe. It's 293, no, I'm sorry, 293 is with the CPSC.
We can round that.
CPSE is,
Preschool.
oh, got it,
Just
okay.
3 to 5.
And what percentage or number of students have 504s?
So 504, this is another, 504 is not a special education plan, it's a general education plan.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, but it
Right.
seems as though kids with a 504 need, in some cases, some special education, no? Or maybe that's a separate
More lines of program modifications.
discussion.
Or
Right, and
accommodations.
accommodations, not necessarily, well, not at all, specifically programs and related services, but program modifications, whether, or testing accommodations, whether it's extended time, graphic
Separate location.
organizers, breaks.
And a lot of the times, as someone who's in ICT, obviously there's students with IEPs, students with 504s, students who are gen ed, and we're kind of, like, as the special ed teacher, I'm often assisting students with 504s as well as students with IEPs, as well as the gen ed students. So
Right. So
it's
both-
kind of all together.
Right, both groups have disabilities. One's disability is significant enough that it needs programs and related services. One's disabilities only require program modifications and testing accommodations. So both have disabilities. The severity of the disability is going to define what services are needed or not. So I
Right.
can-
They also fall under 2 different laws.
Right.
IEPs, CSEs fall under the IDEA laws,
504s and
and
ADA.
504 is under the American Disabilities Act.
Understood, thank you for that. And, because, listening to Amanda talk, a lot of the things that you were talking about seem like things that, like, project-based learning, like, you could be talking about general ed when you're talking about any of those things that help students. And so I think it'll be interesting to see what you guys come up with and what we're able to, work with our own curriculum to, because I think it, as you said, I think it could benefit all students in
Oftentimes
many
it's
ways.
just best practice.
Totally, it's a best
Yeah.
practice for learning, exactly.
I mean, if I may, this is really wonderful, thank you. And I'm trying to stay silent, let all of you speak because you're doing it so wonderfully. But let me just grab that, because where we are in special ed is what serves everybody. In that whole spectrum, we got to get at what serves everybody and then fine tune that, as opposed to the other way around. Right? That's fundamentally what the move to inclusion is. We used to separate.
Yes.
Here's where you go for your classroom, here's where you go for your classroom. 504 is frankly a fairly new concept in the walk of all this. But that's how we used to, no. Now we say, let's build together, and when we can't do it together, then we find ways to still be together, but a little variation.
Right.
So I just want to grab that, because that's where the whole special ed is just reversed in very powerful ways.
Got it.
And the
Um,
strengths thing too, right? Like, kind of going with your strength. I know in my life, when I learned you don't have to fix everything that's broken, you're never gonna be perfect at what you
Right.
hate, like strengths is what you love.
Right.
So go with it. I mean, that's really philosophically life-changing for everybody, right? So I think that's awesome.
And I don't know if there are more questions. Some of you are involved in the Portrait of the Learner, which is starting tomorrow. And intentionally, some of you are in there to bring these ideas front and center. Your theory of action should be front and center.
I agree.
And in fact, your theory of action is...
Ours.
No, I'm using yours
Oh,
in the
you were
plural.
plural.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not saying you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not, I would have said Tespas if I meant Tespas. I'm transparent, Tessa, like you.
I was gonna say, I think some of that wording was mine.
Plural, yours. I'm not, anyway, the point is, I'm gonna be uber serious here. That is a powerful theory of action as you've evolved it. And I think, and I don't want to get into a NAEP discussion, but we were at a major session today That NAEP thing's gonna rear its head again to go not, and I hope Hastings dodges this, but give me your numbers, give me your numbers, give me your numbers, discussion done. No. And what you've said here very clearly is you need self-efficacy, then comes the academic piece, and it's gonna be more of a spiral than right? It's not like this, it's not linear. And then I have that ability to make the choices to how I'm gonna function and operate. And as, right, because some would say, if you're not producing academically, what's your purpose school? And so this is very powerful, so I really thank you.
Can I just add one thing too, is that I'm sure you guys will come before us again at some point. And what I think would be helpful for maybe me, the other board members, and certainly members of the community, is that when you say IEP and different learning, maybe give a couple examples of what that looks like. Because, you know, maybe we don't particularly understand what that looks like, because you talk about how it's so different, it could be different for different kids, and, you know, just some examples of this is how this kid learns, or these are the difficulties that this child has, would be helpful for me, and maybe that would be helpful for other people too.
I think that's part of demystifying, right?
Exactly, because we talk about special education all the time, but it's so like kind
Kind
of
of like
there, I don't know what
some
it is.
profile, some like profiles of the
Yeah,
student.
exactly, it might be
Or
helpful.
maybe old redacted, you know.
Yeah.
No, no, no names, just like this is what it looks like, yeah.
No way.
Right, no,
That whole, that continuum of the profile of the student, is so different, of the children that have IEPs, and I think that's really what brings us to those final last two words of individual success. Because you can have an IEP and your success can look very, very different from my child that has an IEP, Amanda's child that has, anybody that's child that has an IEP, their paths are also different. And to lead them into one road is just not really,
Yeah,
it's a very individual success.
yeah. No, so I'm not saying, I don't know if you're saying, because I'm saying that everybody's the same, like,
exactly
yeah,
what you're saying, is
Right.
that it's so broad.
right.
And to just expect, because you're right, the profiles of every child is different. Every one of our under 300 are very different. And they each have strengths and they each have areas of need that we have to work on. But they all have to have their own individual pathway to success.
Amanda, you were gonna say something?
Well, I think it's, like you said, it is a very, when I opened up my statement, it was, you come into it with like, what do I need to do, right? Because there are so many different ways of looking at each child and their needs, right? And I think what our group has kind of found is what are like the core things that really help the general, right? Because then that's when the IEP really comes in with those fine tuning, right? So if my child can't test, you know, they need something to be read to them, right, before to be able to test. That's on their IEP, right? Not every kid is going to have that, but they might be diagnosed the same as someone else.
Correct.
So it is so hard to pinpoint each individual person, but if we look at the core needs, and if we look at the statistics from these articles and the common threads, I feel like that's the information that we should really kind of go with.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really, it's a helpful way of encapsulating everything, because with any problem of practice, take anything, it's always going to be multiple contributing factors to the problem. And so the work of the committee was also around what's the biggest bang for the buck, that if we really target improvement energy here, we're going to be able to chip away at a very large portion of the problem, right? So I do want to give huge kudos to this group, because they stayed really focused on understanding the problem, which the first instinct that people have when they hear anything is to solve it, because we're helpful. Like we just have ideas about things. And this improvement science practice actually asks us to push the brakes pretty hard on that urge, and to sit and get really messy and mucky and feel really uncomfortable for a little while and have some interesting conversations and let them swing and flow, and you know, try to make meaning together around the multiple data points, themes that are coming through the research articles, navigating our beliefs and values, talking about teacher expertise and parent expertise as very key data points in the process, and saying, okay, over so many years, we've had so much feedback, we've had so many things to look at, we've had so much to be thinking about, and the reality is you can't do everything well all at once. You need to focus on one of the key pieces of the problem and target really concerted energy there. And again, great work to this committee. It's really a pleasure to navigate all of this together. And this idea of increasing student self-efficacy, to Tesfa's point, we're not sure what the solutions will be, what change ideas we'll be bringing to you next, because we really are going through an authentic process together. It won't be just one thing, but the one thing we are targeting is student self-efficacy. And we know as a group, based on everything that we've been discussing, reading, seeing, living, that all of these things are connected. So student self-efficacy, academic performance improvements, and then this feeling of success and comfort and being confident and that individual pathway being elevated. So that's how it all fits together. So I also want to recognize and thank Laura and Tesfa for a lot of behind-the-scenes planning and preparation for this. There's a huge backward design of how this was all going to roll out in terms of actionables. We had a question at the recent superintendent's chat about, when's the next part of the process, and we did target end of March to have this first leg of improvement science completed. But within each of those discrete outcomes, session outcomes and the pathway, there's mess in there, and that's a good thing. Like, that's how we build meaning
And
together.
sometimes it might, we're not gonna sit on our hands forever, but, the stress of this group is to really do things the right way. And, we wanted this aim 2 sessions ago, and it didn't happen, just because conversations and things happened. And so sometime in that March frame, we wanna have, more tangible, hey, we need this. That's our ideological goal. We hope to do it, but if we have to push back that. But we're gonna make some progress soon, and like I said, we really don't want this just to be, at times, not to say anything, but to say something like, we don't wanna have meetings with meetings about meetings for meetings. Like, there has to be something like,
Actionable.
I'm tired of chasing my tail at this
Yeah.
point, so
Yeah.
hopefully, we can figure something out by then.
Right on.
So we move into solutions next, and we're excited for the next update.
I'll second that right on.
Thank
Tamara.
you.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
He's
Thanks,
great.
everyone.
Lars is great. We have to acknowledge that.
Thank you all
And
again.
please stay for a couple more hours.
Yeah, we've only just begun.
Right.
Front row seats.
It's quite true.
I'll catch the live stream.
this is,
Yeah, tomorrow.
Big story.
Oh, man.
It's fun. All right, thank you again. So we're going to move on, I guess, to Dr. McCursey for update and district highlights. Is that correct?
Sure, and Gus will probably, we never talked before, but we often hit the same thing, so I'll try not to repeat what you may say, but you can repeat what I said. How's that? Okay, that's good communication. First off, the Portrait of a Hastings Learner important the board and the community hear about that. We are at a pivot point. The survey's closed. Very high level of participation. We left it open a little bit longer to the beginning of this week just to allow those who not had a chance to complete it. That is one piece of what will be the process. Next step is tomorrow. The core group comes together for 2 full days. It's set up upstairs. Judy Wilson's been here arranging all the tables for small work group, working with all of that survey data and other information. And she's very much planning that by the end of those 2 days, we'll start to have a very good outline of the portrait and the start of some action steps. So that's key. And we'll begin to update the community through the board and more directly as to where we are. We have now a dedicated part of the website. It's right up when you go on the website. There's a very clear spot right up at the top that says Portrait of the Hastings Learner. We'll be putting updates there as we go. The core group members are listed there. We've not blasted their names out there in the public because we don't want the public to feel they should go racing to them to get the answers. Please, it's an act of great volunteerism by that core group. If there are questions, concerns, they really should come to me. And I'm happy to be a resource, or Melissa Szymanski, happy to be a resource and to be helpful. Judy Wilson, facilitator, who's done this in a number of places and We were at a Tri-State Consortium event today. Melissa and I, for a good part of the day, brought together probably 100 or so educators from across Westchester and Southern Fairfield County and even other parts of New York State and Connecticut. And there are a number of people that have worked with Judy on these topics, and they've said you're in really good hands. And Judy said to me, really, the next few days as superintendent, assistant superintendent, you're in the room, your job is to sit and listen, because this is really a chance for others to speak. But today there was a very powerful presentation, and at the end of it, it came clear to me what may be a good place for us to hang our hat. And that is civic purpose must be our signature as an educational community, period. Civic purpose must be our signature as an educational community. Defined a wee bit, we must organize our goals and actions to prepare Hastings students to be the future citizens required to address the complex realities of a modern democracy. My little bias is now showing the night before. And I said to Judy, she said, fine, say that, because she agrees with me, but it's up to the group to get there. But if you think about organizing an educational community now and going forward, that really could be something. Richard Lemons ended a very long talk, upbeat but very concerned about where we are as a democracy, and this is a bipartisan issue. This is a human issue. It's not about Republican, Democrat, Independent. It's about being human and respectful and understanding what holds us together as a very, very and increasingly diverse people. And anyway, sorry for the soapbox, but I couldn't resist. So that's Portrait of a Hastings Learner. Now to the very specific emergency contact request went out to all families. It's really, really important, and here I'm speaking to the community through the board. It's really, really important that those are as accurate as possible. And as a security safety expert said to us a couple weeks ago in this room, go deep. Make sure who's on that list is someone who can get here fast if they need be. It just, you always have to plan and be ready, and so that request went out from me. Some reminder requests go out from principals, and we want to get those records as accurate as possible. Then third, good news highlights. Gus will probably pick up some of these, so I'll go just to the headlines. The Outsiders, Melissa and I stepped into the dress rehearsal. They didn't know we were there. It was really powerful. I've heard that the two real nights of the production were as powerful. And that is a serious piece of drama, and that really speaks to, as I put in my Friday letter, it's a compliment to Hastings that they would take that on, and it's a controversial piece. And I've heard no complaints, which to me says this is a community ready for, and has been ready for many, many years to take on the controversial and allow our high schoolers anyway to engage. So I'm really appreciative of that. Ali Marpet, a famous alum, and what is he famous for?
Playing guard for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
There you go.
And winning a Super Bowl.
He was in district this week, a surprise, to kind of help applaud the football team. And I think, from what I heard, it was an amazing moment. Yesterday was the last of Hillside's nature walks that are facilitated by Robin Farrell. The buzz, which is increasingly moving away from me, as it should. We need to feature other people. My family's asking me to get away from the mic, get off screen fast. But anyway, so Jackie is working on now a buzz to feature that. Okay. And then we have two 10th graders who are accepted into the Moth storytelling program. And I don't know if you're going to go there. No, okay, I got one. Natalie Romero and Natalie Garson, 10th graders in Ms. Rudolph's English class, and this is quite an accomplishment. And then I want to leave you with a fun note, which kind of captures things. The diversity committee met yesterday, obviously very important. I was part of that. That was the same time the field hockey team was in their first round of sectionals. And if anyone knows where my office is, while it's almost a quarter to half mile from my window to the field. And about 4:25, I hear this uproar. It's just cheers cascading into my And so after the match, I sent a note to Coach Gagliardi and said, I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I heard it was a wonderful match, 2-1 victory. And at 4:25, I had heard all this cascade of roars coming back. And she wrote back, I appreciate her saying, Bill, thank you so much. I'm pretty sure that cheering was in response to Vivian Smith's diving save with about a minute left in the game, which secured our 2-1 win. Wow. This group of girls is really something special, and hopefully they get the recognition they deserve. Oh, wow. So I think that's a fitting note to end on right now.
Thanks. That's great. Thank you, Dr. McCarthy. So we're going to head over to Dr. Szymanski for the curriculum and instruction report.
Okay. The curriculum review cycle is alive and well in Hastings, so thank you again to the Professional Learning Committee for their work to design that last year. My first update is on the Hillside Mathematics Inquiry. A team of teachers representative of each grade, special education, and mathematics intervention met to begin the mathematics Phase 1 inquiry process of the curriculum review cycle at Hillside. This work was planned and also co-facilitated by Kathy Williams, mathematics consultant and thought partner from UCube at Stanford University, Amy Kazis, and myself. So we planned that together. Pre-session work for the group involved reading articles about mathematical fluency, groupatizing, and visual networks, and session work included engaging with multiple mathematics learning activities, just really engaging in the math as learners, as if students would, exploring the connections between conceptual understanding, computational and procedural skills, and problem solving, discussing the articles that were read for the pre-session, and beginning to develop a shared vision for elementary mathematics grounded in research and understanding the prior work of the K-12 Mathematics Committee, so making sure that everything was tied together. I will skip my overview on the Special Education Advisory Committee. That was a very comprehensive presentation. I do want to say it's my pleasure to be involved in that work, which is very rigorous and very joyful. Curriculum review cycle, world languages, is also in a Phase 1 inquiry. Katie Paz, World Languages Department Chairperson, and I have been working together to plan the inquiry process. And last week we met with members of the middle and high school World Languages Department to begin the work. The session began with looking at the revisions to the New York State standards with a focus on interpersonal and presentational communication modes. Teachers shared activities and assessments across the different levels, the different checkpoints that they teach. So you think novice, intermediate, high. Identifying what was already being done within these two modes, interpersonal and presentational. We watched webinars to deepen understanding of each of these modes. We explored some student work. We engaged in a calibration exercise to align around proficiency expectations. So we have many things to do moving forward. And that was actually a whole lot of fun as well. Professional Learning Committee earlier this month, and this is some weeks ago, members of the Professional Learning Committee came together to review faculty survey feedback around the fall superintendent's conference days and begin conversation about the next year's superintendent's conference days based on the survey data that we pushed out district-wide. The survey we pushed district-wide, rather. We also discussed an addendum to the professional development plan that was submitted to the state. So with regard to the superintendent's conference day surveys, 63 members of the faculty responded, most of whom were teachers, and there were also 16% of respondents from faculty members in other roles throughout the district. Overall satisfaction with the superintendent conference days was quite high, so 81% indicated favorable experience. 13 were more neutral. And curriculum collaboration specifically was the highest rated experience across the 3 days. 92% of respondents reported it as being favorable. So thank you to our faculty.
What percent of faculty responded?
I don't have that number. It was 63 members of the faculty.
Like
so
a
if you think
third?
of every,
How many?
well, it's hard to gauge. I'd have to look because the survey was pushed to everyone in all roles. So if you were a member of the faculty, clerical, custodial, teaching faculty, the highest number of respondents were from the teaching faculty, but we still had a pretty low survey response. So, I'm going to keep surveying. This actually came through something we were thinking about last year. We want to make sure that we're upping response because we are using the information to inform our planning. And the more we do that, I suspect the more people are going to be responding.
Right.
So that they see like their input matters and their voice matters.
Yeah.
But
I always worry about participation bias with something like that. you
yeah,
know?
absolutely.
The people responding are the ones who like it, so.
Absolutely.
On that topic, sorry.
No,
no,
you go first. No.
Do we have more, I know they're not superintendent conference days, do we have more professional development days than the district? our 3 peer districts? Do we have 4 built in every year?
I think we're pretty similar. I mean, I'd have to check regionally, but I'm pretty sure we're not dissimilar, at least from where I came from next door, over in Ardsley, remembering back, it was pretty similar, like within a few days. That is pretty typical. Some districts have different structures for professional learning, so I know Ardsley's had an early release Wednesday for like every week, right? So they have dedicated time that's built in for that. Other districts handle it differently, but in
It's
terms,
an early
yeah,
dismissal.
like they'll do an early day. Some of it's contractual, some of it is not, depending on the district.
Because when, I remember coming up in calendar discussions, why we couldn't just match another district. We couldn't just copy so-and-so, they don't have the requirement for a 4th day here or there.
Right. So we have.
It wouldn't be part of a survey, that really wasn't surveyed, it seems like we're getting very positive with the curriculum collaboration overall, whatever. But a discussion on whether or not, we would want to 4 days for 3 days to get an extra day of school for students.
The contract speaks to the way the days are.
Structured.
How many days we have in terms of.
Right, but as you know, I believe the contract is flexible.
No. And then
When
I
we
was
get a
gonna say, I
chance
think
to negotiate
Right. And then
contracts.
I was just gonna say the number of days, because the state allows you, in terms of like, they count it as an instructional day under their.
Under
definition of
certain
days.
conditions.
So like, the state acknowledges for instructional days.
That can
excuse me,
count as
has
instruction.
Toward instructional hours. So I think that's why, to Melissa's point, I think a lot of people, if they're using 3 full days, they'll break up. Many districts use either early release days and
As
they
the
take
same
the hours
hours.
throughout, or they'll do 2 and take those 2 days and stretch them over the calendar. That's how they accomplish the 4, because you can count them toward your instructional hours to make the 9 days.
Right. And to Maureen's point,
For state aid, yeah.
superintendent's conferences can count if they're being used in certain ways. And curriculum collaboration is one of those areas that is allowable. And then I have one last note, and this is from the high school and from the district. Thank you to the PTSA for the generous funding for buses for the grade 11 trip to Philadelphia.
Tomorrow.
It was a huge offset, and there's a whole lot of gratitude for that. So I did want to highlight that publicly.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks for calling attention to that. Thank you, Dr. Szymanski. Moving on, Gus, student report.
All right. So yeah, I did not have this in here, but congrats to the field hockey team. I know Vivian made that also save. It was also her birthday this week, so it was a double win for her. First and foremost, congratulations to the cast of The Outsiders. It was a massive success. The cast and the crew, we've, as a school, been hearing for weeks about how much work they've been putting into this, how many late nights went into Tech Week, and it really paid off. Cast and the crew and everyone, really put something special together. We're so lucky to, as a student body, just get to go see it. So that was really cool, and I know they had a great time doing it. I wish Eliana was here to talk more about it. She's, I think, got a ton of work and also has something conflicting.
She actually, we saw her as we walked into the dress rehearsal. One, she said we could go in and watch. And then two, she said, I couldn't believe it. She's in the middle of a dress rehearsal, not on stage, okay, off stage. But she said, I won't be here tonight because I'll be catching up.
Wow.
So,
That's
They put in-
so she knew, yeah. So I'm just underscoring how well focused and planning she is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The juniors took their PSATs this morning. The tests don't have a huge amount of sway on anything college related. It's a good indicator of how well you're going to do on the actual lesson. Not an amazing indicator, but a decent indicator. What it does sort of carry some weight for is the National Merit Scholarship. So students that score really high on that will get considered to be a commended scholar, I believe, in the spring, and then it's like semi-finalist or a whole bunch of different rounds, and then it ends up and you become a finalist and have a chance to win one of these $2,500 scholarships through the National Merit Corporation. Tomorrow, again, juniors, we're going to be heading up to Philadelphia. I know everyone's super excited for that. It's sort of enhancing the U.S. history curriculum. All three of the history classes, it's SUPA, which is through Syracuse, APUSH, which is AP, and then Regents History, all going up there together. They're going to see some major American historical sites, which I think is going to be really cool. I wish we could have done that last year. It's supposed to be an amazing trip. Everyone's really hyped up for that. If you've noticed any of those red ribbons hanging around, maybe
Yes.
walking up to school, that is thanks to the SAD Club, which is the Students Against Destructive Decisions. The ribbons are meant to promote drug-free living. And yeah, it's all thanks to them that those are up there. They're really working hard, you know, against drugs for living these natural, healthy, good Hastings lives. Hastings Kids, which stands for Kids Involved in Doing Service. They work closely with Hastings Youth Council. They're planning a blood drive for students, which is awesome. It's planned for November 1st, and that's really thanks to Eliana and Natalie Romero, who Dr. McPherson mentioned about the storytelling program. So they're doing some awesome stuff.
Is that only for students, or can adults go too, or do you know?
I'm actually not sure. I have to find out more about Eliana. Just texted me.
I know adults can come because they needed access, they needed security to allow adults to come in through the.
Okay, yeah.
We'll
Makes
have more
sense.
information
Okay,
for that
yeah.
as we get closer to the date. And the November 1st deadline, speaking of dates that we're getting closer to, is coming up quick. It's a week
Early
from today.
decision.
Seniors are going to be sending their applications for early action and early decision. So there is quite a bit of stress bubbling around the high school, but also super exciting. It's sort of that first step towards next big steps. And I just want to say thank you to the counseling department, who are just such a tremendous resource for all the seniors and for everyone in high school. Like everyone I know is just going in there every single day, and counselors are so helpful and so responsive. So that is all I've got. Thank you.
Gus,
Thanks, Gus.
thank you very much, as always. We're going to move on to public comment. It doesn't seem like there is any. So we're going to move to our business items. Gus, if you're, it's obviously a lot on your plate. If you want to pack up, you're welcome
I
to.
think I will take it.
See you.
Come back for the end, though.
Come back
Yeah,
to
for the end.
What? Now I'm wondering.
10 hours, we'll come back for 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Gus.
See you. See you. All right, moving on to business items. Are there any questions or comments for business items 1 through 14?
I have a few questions. Number 1, science professional learning. Can you just explain a little bit what that is and who it's for?
Sure. It's district-wide. It's in partnership with Melissa Shandroff and the department, and it is for continued alignment to the P-12 science learning standards. So there is a shift happening. The state rolled out new standards. We, meaning New York State, has been gradually aligning. The assessment for science is actually shifting from 4th grade into 5th grade. Things are happening in terms of changes that are being made. And so we've had to align to the new standards, and they're quite different. They're cross-cutting concepts and disciplinary core ideas, and there's a phenomena-based approach so that students are actually engaging with learning in a way that they're exploring different phenomena that they're experiencing. So there's some pretty significant work that's been happening and also still continues to need to be done. Grade levels and even different courses are in different places with their alignment efforts. So one of the things that we've been doing to track that is we've been creating these heat maps. So which units of study are fully aligned, which ones still need to be aligned. Liz Mira is basically not only our main line to the state, but she is a regional partner and expert. She's working with a number of districts to help as a thought partner to help teachers design. At Hillside last year, for example, there were end-of-unit performance assessments that were designed for students in relation to the science work. 5th grade is going through a pretty massive overhaul. Teachers have actually been requesting her. They love working with her. They've been extremely positive about having her support. And we found her after, the Who She Is part, we found her after working with a woman by the name of Dr. Helen Pashley, who is also a regional guru and a whole a tremendous expert, and then she suddenly retired. And Melissa Shandroff and I went, ah! So we put out an RFP, a request for proposal. We had a number of really strong proposals come back in terms of people that we might work with. Melissa and I met to interview folks, and they were very impressive, and in some cases we felt not right for us. You know, thinking about our context and thinking about what teachers needed and how they would respond to being supported, and the kind of expertise that would also elevate some of the work that they were already doing really well and celebrating. And so we centered around Liz, and things are going really well with Liz. And so Edith Winthrop Teacher Center, I've partnered with them for a grant, so almost all of this is being paid for by the Edith Winthrop Teacher Center. And I think, I hope that answers your question.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I wanted to just add that, I mean, this is a national issue, and I'm sure you know that, but the educational gap with the natural sciences is really evident in seeing when, like, unless you have your parents laser focus on trying to give you the additional help in the natural sciences, let me be specific, there is an educational gap and between the schools and the colleges, and not because of anything, but more so because of the connection. The bridge is not really done properly, and it's been an ongoing issue that I have spoken to others about. And so when I hear the feedback, I usually don't say anything because I'm really very happy and excited about it, because I'm not sure whether to say fortunately or unfortunately, but the expectation with scientific inquiry, natural scientific inquiry in the schools is usually separate from the college, where college you need to have mastery on content, right? Mm-hmm. And in the schools, it's about the inquiry process of science, and then so we have our kids come to college, and all of a sudden we are expected to know and master content. And so when you have individuals like that, they help to shape the curriculum based on the requirement, and at the same time create that bridge to help with that. So it's a very nuanced process that if you don't know how to do it, you just simply cannot do it. So I totally understand what you mean by you may have the expert individuals, but you may not get the fit for the kind of lack of communication, let me put it, that is going on with the natural sciences. So it's even a headache for us trying to see, we create bridge programs upon bridge programs upon bridge programs, and it's just, and I mean, truly most natural science endeavors are targeted to either going to pre-med, academia, higher education, more than to schools to teach. So what do we expect, right? So anyway, but I just wanted to support like what you are saying, and thank you for the work here.
Yeah, the state just released investigations, or basically almost like primers of what students should expect. And just in terms of my own core values, we will not be, we will never be focusing on our work on teaching to a test. We're always going to be focusing on teaching to students and making sure that there's deep learning that's happening, and at the same time they do have to familiarize themselves with what to expect. There are some pretty radical shifts. So again, these new standards are not just individual bullets associated with a grade level around this content. It's around marrying science and engineering practices, and also these disciplinary core ideas, which we would consider more like content related, for example, like the relationship between energy and force and that type of thing. And then also there are cross-cutting concepts. So there may be things that have to do with cause and effect, which isn't necessarily centered just around a science practice, or patterns, which are typically something that you'd be focused more on in mathematics. So that there is an interdisciplinary component. This is the first year that the science test will not be given by the state in fourth grade to prepare us for the shift in 2024 to the test being given in fifth grade. And again, these are quite different, and we've had a heavy lift. I want to thank Melissa Shandroff, since we're talking about this, who's been an amazing partner in this, and recognizing that there's a lot of work to be done. And our teachers, who are just they've really been phenomenal. They've really rolled up their sleeves. They've looked at their units, and they're seeing like other ways that we need to be thinking about science instruction, especially with these new standards, which are actually quite robust and quite good, if I could put value on them. They're really centering students in the investigatory process and phenomena and inquiry, and it's good.
Great, thank you. I have two more questions about two more items. One is the JAG 1 athletic training services. What's that about exactly?
As some of you may be aware, we previously had an in-district athletic trainer. That person's just unable to continue doing that for us, and we've been for months looking for someone to be hired, and then
this is a consultant.
Yeah,
because
we
don't have
located this
position.
contract, so
I
it's
understand.
still
I thought we
not
had a
right.
position. That's
Yeah,
what I
and
understand.
honestly, this
Okay.
is like a temporary solution to what we need to potentially consider other avenues, because they're only able to provide us. There's not a commitment for everything we need, but it's a step to assist us in this time.
Perfect, thank you. And the last one was number 4, the Westchester,
Center Lane?
Center Lane, yes, Center Lane. I see that that's an LGBTQ plus program that's focused on Hillside, and I'm wondering exactly, that's professional development, but given that's a controversial topic, I'd like to know what exactly is their role in teaching at Hillside.
So this year, so it won't just be Hillside. There's exploration and conversation going on at the middle school and high school too. And right now, middle and high school, the next agenda item you'll see from Center Lane is really going to be around faculty assembly that combines middle and high school as well. But it's really around.
But this one is just for
This
Hillside.
one's just for Hillside. And it's specific to reviewing training materials, sitting in on virtual training, planning and executing in-person follow-up, and helping to create curriculum. And so the idea is to create a more inclusive curriculum, and really looking at gender and being able to ensure that our curriculum is culturally responsive, and partnering with us. As they do with many of the districts around the region, which is one of the reasons why we shifted to Center Lane too, because they are working regionally across this area around, reviewing some training materials and serving to observe presentations and training and giving some feedback. And then really looking at curriculum, looking together a curriculum and identifying appropriate materials. Janice Mateo Toledo has been heavily involved in this too, so the conversations with them, and they'll be providing us with some support around how we can be thinking about improving our curriculum in this area.
Okay, and can we, given that this is a sensitive topic and there's been a little bit of controversy about it before, will there be an understanding for us about what comes out of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always an effort to make sure that we're being fully transparent. So whatever is emerging from this, I can certainly work with Amy and provide some updates on the work that's happening.
Thank you very much. I'd like to get ahead of something, a controversy, instead of afterwards.
Thank you.
Thanks, those are all my questions.
Yeah, I mean, if I may add to that, because I think exactly your point, I mean, we have to be in this work, and we have to be saying on the continuum of any diversity, we're not taking a position on anywhere on that continuum of diversity, whatever it may be. I mean, pick the topic, but we have to be, providing students the ability to work along that continuum, be respectful, understanding, and in the work be age appropriate. So certain things that we would delve into at Hillside that we won't delve into, we won't delve into Hillside, we would at the middle school and high school. And the advantage of going with now a single partner district-wide on this is that we have that sense of being systematic and appropriate and supportive, and then trying to minimize. We're not going to get rid of any controversy on this. In fact, I think Hastings has been quite healthy on this to understand.
Yeah.
But you don't have to go far anywhere now. This is just one of these, it's a topic that is vital and essential, and also it's distracting a lot of schools from work, because families and others are saying, well, it's distracting the work of boards, so we want to embrace it, do the work right, value that whole range on the continuum, and to try and have a partner that's working with us K through 12 and appropriately, and working with other area districts.
Right.
So trying to minimize any potential downsides to this important work.
Thank you. Just because to my medium educated eye, a lot of the terminology and wording in there was very adult, or even middle school to high school, not relevant, like partner abuse, that's not happening in the elementary school to kids, there's a lot of terminology there that I just want to be careful about what we're exposing our kids to and understanding. That's why I brought it up.
Okay.
I wanted to just say that, diversity work is really difficult. Even I have family members that are not two family members in the other side of the states, where even certain terms cannot be used in the classrooms and all of that, or in the school for that matter. And I just want to echo it here. I know that when we're doing the DEI, the three of us in that policy committee, it was important for us to embrace the concept of coexistence, because like Doreen, my colleague here, said, a lot of people are at different places, even with persons of color. They are wondering, okay, this is, or even ACA slavery and all those things, that they feel like, well, I'm not participatory. Some don't want to care about it. But I say all of this to say that when the concept of coexistence is what is leading diversity, then we realize that no one single person is an initiator of the structured discriminatory practices of the past, but we can collectively work not to reinforce it, and allow for us all to remain as we want to be it family values or whatever, without being shamed regardless. And I think that emphasis of coexistence is important, so that our kids would know that we just talking about self-efficacy. You be who you are, and just coexist, and not diminish one over the other. I know this was a public information that I personally shared, that people have asked me, how is that working? But I'm a Jesus freak, my husband is atheist. We can learn to coexist and still love each other. And I just want to throw it out there. It's already a public information. But I'm sorry if I can't go back. I know Jeremy wanted to say something. Is that okay? Or Doreen, you are done with it?
I'm done. Those were my
Okay.
three. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen.
Remember when I wanted to say something, I said you should go first. If it's okay to go back a little bit about the survey.
Oh, good. I thought you thought I had something.
Probably.
I always
About the survey that Doreen mentioned, that the low participation. I think that we can all agree that most surveys usually, sometimes you will get low participation. I'm wondering, I've forgotten the term they use for it for this, but I'm going to explain it, and then my brain is all foggy right now. But sometimes you can do, when you have low survey input, you can do what I just randomly call the targeted random surveying, where because you want to receive information to inform decision, like you were saying, like saying that, okay, let's do a randomized yet targeted input. There's a term for it, I can't remember. In other words, you want to get maybe if it's the staff, faculty, students, and janitors, and this and that, you sort of are intentional about that category and then target it there, so that at the end of the day, you get the broad spectrum. It's still random, but it's intentional and targeted. Is there a way to sort of implement that so that the survey is not just being done by those who are just always, like, it doesn't come from one body of voice alone, so that there's more of a broader spectrum. This was just a thought that I wanted to throw at you. There's a term for it, but I can't.
Random sampling?
It's random sampling, but random sampling has different levels of it. Is it matching or something? But this is all technical terms. But you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think the key goal is ultimately to make sure we get as much authentic voice as possible. And so one of the things that I do regularly is I make sure that the surveys are anonymous, and I do that in my own work too.
Oh, got it.
So coming out of committee work, the Special Education Advisory Committee, we've had exit tickets that are anonymous. I think that the challenge is, I mean, sometimes the benefit can be great if we do target it, and there's definitely purpose for that too. I think in this case, people may actually be less apt to respond if they think potentially they might be identifiable by having a smaller group.
Correct.
And I truly welcome the negative feedback if there is negative feedback, because then we talk about it and we ask, how do we make it better? Which is the whole point of a learning institution, right? Like we highlight what we do well, we celebrate it, we always say, all right, and then what's not going well so we can focus on that and make it better. I will continue to reflect on that, so there might be opportunities. And then the other thing that I like to do is simply just have some hallway conversations. Like, can you talk to me about how that really felt? Did you get any feedback from your department on it? And have more direct conversations. And I do that respectfully without people feeling like they have to like name a particular person in their department or anything like that. You know, just I don't want that information. I authentically just want to know how it's really going. Is there a buzz to something? But I will continue to give it more thought. I suspect that the more people are feeling that their voice is heard in the survey, the more they will continue to respond to the survey. And I think we came out of a very difficult environment with COVID, where decisions had to be made fast and they were urgent. And naturally, people could not feel a slower, more input-based collaborative process easily, because the changes that were coming were so fast and so furious, and we were reinventing education. And so now we do have really a tremendous benefit of more normalcy, where we can go back to a pace that doesn't feel too fast or too slow, and we can work together to disrupt things within our own program, but we do that together and we do that with input. And I think that the more we do that well, the more people will feel safe to keep answering the survey. And then to your earlier point, with any survey, with even the most optimistic view of survey response and people feeling choice and voice, sometimes survey response is extremely low. It's just, if you get 30%, sometimes it's a great day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thanks.
So if I would build off of what I think Doreen was, bringing up, I think everyone on this board knows we almost all, we approve things 7-0 in this area of budgets, and you're not, asking for our input as much. So when I see Hillside and I see gender spectrum, of course I'm thinking about my community, my neighbors. We are a diverse community. Their children are diverse. But there is controversy when we hear Hillside and creating curriculum. So I know you're not asking us to approve, your visions for what our schools should be like. And I know we are going to approve everything you ask for us in this setting. But I think when the feedback comes back, are we getting professional development for our teachers, for our administrators, to adjust the classroom environment Well, that's what 100% of our community is in supportive of, you know. You know, we want to create positive experiences, and our students on the gender spectrum, you know, continually report negative experiences in their schools. But when it comes at us like this, where, you know, are we creating curriculum? I think it brings up a lot of those like separate days, which I think have been more controversial. You know, when we stop instruction and we try to do a whole day, and I don't know if you could speak to that, because maybe it's fluid
I think
and
you
it's
can-
not definitive
Yeah,
what we're getting here.
Melissa, you can clarify that, I think.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, this is specifically in terms of, you know, working with the administration, making sure that there's reviewing training materials, like things like that, that are going directly also to faculty to be supportive of the work that they're doing. And then that is separate and apart from, if I'm understanding the question, it's separate and apart from like teachers creating curriculum and like working together as a department to do that, or like the mathematics inquiry work, for example, where they had a release from the classroom to be able to do deep work. You cannot accomplish deep work in an hour. You just can't. Like not related to curriculum. You need a concerted chunk of time, either half days or you need a full day. This is really specific around like what are some additional materials you might be considering, or when you're looking at this particular lesson, what are some things you might not have considered?
Inside of the classroom,
that's
not
right.
outside
So that-
special events.
Yeah, this is paying the third party to help develop the resources that teachers then use.
For in our
That's
classroom,
right.
for that experience,
Yeah.
for those
So-
opportunities,
That's right.
for that inclusion.
Yeah.
But not for an outside
Yeah, I mean,
consultant coming in to perform a day for our hillside students, which has some range, I believe, of a challenging school. And I think we leave it in the administration's and principals' realm, because as you said, Hastings has not just avoided it, you know, we've been focused on improving, you know, positive outcomes in a way that I think we have a strong history of avoiding
yeah,
that
yeah,
controversy.
teachers need high-quality resources and support. And in many places where people have stumbled and thus created controversy in their communities, it's because there has not been good resource and support for the teachers. Even the most well-meaning people will get in a situation and make a mistake without the support and the resources. So this is a modest investment, hopefully with significant return on investment, because it's going to provide those resources and provide, you know, those materials.
Yeah, there was
Is
something,
that It's
Jeremy.
really kind of then blending it into what's going on. And I think what's important here, and we caught something in our rounds. Melissa and I do rounds. It's all good what you're about to hear. But we caught from, and we tended, and actually another district does this exactly the way we do it. Every week they meet with the whole leadership team. I learned it today. It helped me to go to conferences. But they alternate that with this run of meetings amongst their building leaders. So we were, from one building to the next, 2 separate plans on this.
Great.
Okay.
And we
Good.
said, let's make one plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so-
And I wish we were planful enough not to have caught it on the fly, but at least we caught it.
Yeah.
And so that puts us in a much better
Right.
place. Is that,
Yes.
so that,
And-
anyway.
And the goal also, you know, in doing all of this is also definitely coherence. And so flagging it to say, well, wait a minute, hold on a minute. Like, and then sharing it directly and getting all 3 buildings on the same page and then moving forward from there. So,
That's great.
and that's what you heard me say earlier, you know, the next business item will be the middle high school one, you know, and just thinking about how we're then, you know, creating that through.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure, Jeremy, I bring this up because there was something that was being taught in Hillside that I felt was very, not factual, but values. And I don't think we should be teaching values in school. I think we should be teaching facts in school. And so I want to make sure that this is aligned with facts and not values.
Was that in the classroom, or was it in a?
Yeah, it was in the
external
classroom.
event?
It was
In
in-
the classroom, actually. Thank you.
Both, discussion. Any further questions or comments for business items 1 through 14? Is there a motion to approve business items 1 through 14?
So moved.
Is there a second? Oh, very nice. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.
I have a procedural question. When we get to budget, I'm just gonna hit that fast to introduce it for the next meeting, because there's so much there at this late hour if we try and get into it.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna introduce it quickly, because it's in there, it's in the public record. But so if you're wondering, oh my goodness, we have a budget workshop coming at us. If I didn't ask your permission.
No,
but
no,
I'm
we
assuming
covered a
you're
lot of
going-
important ground, so,
Yeah,
you
so
know,
I
that's-
want to, and I looked ahead at the next meeting, and I think it can work, so I'll just introduce it.
Okay.
But let me just right now ask a procedural question. You have 13 items here, some have cover memos, some do not. I don't know if it's helpful to you to have a cover memo in most cases or not. We now do an agenda review ahead of these meetings, and in that agenda review, Melissa and Maureen and I thought, would it be useful or not? It's a little added piece of work, but sometimes it may help clarify, what is this that I have in front of me? So we
For
could get a.
business item 7A, is that what you're talking
No, any of these business
your-
items.
Okay,
So,
okay.
meaning you'd have, any item you get, you'd have a form on the top.
Yeah.
It would have, who's putting it forward, a little brief overview statement, and a checkbox is action or discussion.
Correct.
And action, a vote,
That'll be
discussion. So
helpful.
then you have it on each, and we're looking for a template, so it's easy for us to do, if it would be easy for you. You
My
see what
only
I'm
concern is that's a
saying?
lot of work for you.
Well, we're gonna review it.
Well, I would say the opposite. I think, in a lot of our training, we talked about, the agenda comes out days before our meetings, and some of our role, is we have time to send emails, so if it feels like our questions are too deep, maybe that, there's reasons for that as well that couldn't have been nipped. But, there is always the opportunity, because we've had a pretty good record of posting it, more than in time. Do you feel like it's our role to hit you with emails, or do you want to
Yeah,
try to avoid that with the summary statements?
No,
Not avoid.
No, I think sometimes if you're opening it up and all you're seeing is, for example, the submission argument, so it's item 10. So all you're seeing is, this particular individual making their case, as opposed to a quick, tight cover note on why this would be important to do or not. Other districts do that, I'm not advocating for it, so you can think on it. It is a bit more work,
Yeah.
right? But if it's something that's gonna help your deliberations and help move the meeting
Well,
along, speaking of efficacy
Ah,
and
okay, I see.
efficiency.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So just think on, you have to
Yeah.
answer it now, but we're doing a little homework on whether we can do it efficiently.
Okay.
So anyway, why
That's
don't we move
a
on?
fair
Even if you
suggestion.
just, without the cover, you could just put it in the title or,
Yeah, that's what I was
next
thinking
to
too.
it, like action, read ahead, or
Yeah.
information only, or
Yeah, all
ask
right.
involved, that would be enough of a flag for me anyway.
Okay.
Thank you, Maureen.
I'm always in favor of anything being posted with an explanation ahead of time so that I can read it and already come in with any questions.
Mhm.
Because generally, I tend to try to ask my questions ahead of time.
Yep.
So that hopefully it doesn't take up too much
Okay.
of this time, but that's
All
just
right.
my preference.
Yep,
individually.
yep,
I prefer the
okay.
explanation to do
All
it
right.
ahead of time.
Right. Okay.
If it's okay for you, it's more work, but if it's.
We can be selective too, so one added sentence, so you did have purposely a cover memo on the gender piece, because we felt that needed the intro. Some
Yeah.
of the others,
Small ball.
the third party
Yeah.
pitching for the contract, it was clear.
Yeah.
So maybe if we feel that it's just gonna need the explanation, we can do that, otherwise we'll let it speak for itself.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on to business items B, placement and services for CSC and CPSC. Are there any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve our placements for CSC and CPSC?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Moving on to personnel, we're going to work with this as a consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments regarding appointments, resignations, or leaves of absences? Leaves of absence, sorry.
But I'm just curious, why do we need to have a letter about or approve the student observer at Hillside Elementary School for one day?
That's a procedure that we implemented with anyone who has contact potentially with students.
Got it.
We want to make sure
More
that you are
protection,
aware
we're
that
aware.
there's a non-employee coming in, that we've granted approval, we've vetted a process by which we know they're legitimately coming in to observe, and that we've run fingerprints, and we have a whole backstory involved in that, and that we make sure that you are aware of that as a board.
So
Strangers in the school.
Well,
Usually in service to their degree program. And so we're,
Yeah.
we really support, a pipeline, being able to provide
I think it's great. I was like,
opportunities.
why do we need to, and
Yeah,
that's terrific. I'm
and we
glad,
make
but-
sure that we go through a rigorous process to make sure that we're not just opening our doors to anyone who wants to say, I would like to come in and observe, but really that there's a purpose and that we're clear on the purpose and we're supportive.
Thank you. I'm glad to know that.
Is there a motion to approve personnel items A through D?
So moved?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to minutes. Are there any questions or comments about our minutes from the last meeting? Is there a motion to approve our minutes? Second? All in favor? Aye. Next agenda item is a policy committee report. These are first reads, I guess, yeah? So this was the video conferencing policy that we looked at, but then had some questions about that got sent back down. Policy committee members, are there any sort of nutshells on where that policy ended up? Or-
Yeah, so we wanted to do the public hearing. So we did clarify with the attorney on the line some questions that we had about the quorum and having to notify where you were, location. So I think we're proposing moving ahead with the open.
Okay.
As I read it, it still looks like we don't have any total number per
Correct.
member.
One of the things we want to discuss.
We're still not, the one you're proposing still has no count,
Right.
Well,
but it was pretty
We had
specific.
discussed that in here, we had discussed it in our policy meeting and felt that it wasn't an answer that the three of us should come to. So we wanted to bring it here to the larger group to see if there was a feeling that there should be a limit to the number of times.
But we're being asked to vote on one that doesn't have a
No, this
limit.
is first read.
First read, first read.
First
This is
No
read.
vote.
first read, to
No
have
vote.
that, discussion.
And I think the ask is to allow us to go for a comment or something, public comment first?
That's item 12. So,
Okay.
under 11, they're separated, so it's a little confusing. But item 11 is just now looking for comments on the first read.
Okay.
So
I would reiterate my comment. I think we should just set a limit of 3 times in
Three?
3 times in any calendar year. I think it's a beautiful, I think it helps a lot because we have members that travel for work, for family, for emergencies. But I think after 3 absences, you can participate just by watching and not voting, not being heard, not trying to comment in. I think 3 a year is enough.
If something do you think that there should be some wording in there that, say it's 3, right? But if you've used your 3 and there's an important meeting, a budget meeting or something coming up, that by vote of the board,
Flexibility.
you're allowed to
Vote.
join that one?
Yes.
That's interesting. So the previous, anybody who goes above 3 would just have a previous board meeting would establish that that person has a 4th one available.
Or like
Interesting.
if it's I don't know how we would do it, how we could
It would
word
have
it,
to be
like
2
the
weeks
day
before.
of, or it could,
You
because
can't vote
it
it
could be
before.
like you're suddenly sick, and you can't, but you don't want to be contagious, but you want to
Wanna vote, but
participate,
you've already
and
missed
be
3.
able to vote, so
I
the
think that
question
could
is,
work,
could we
Doreen,
put it
but
in
when you get
email?
to your 3, you might just have to have, like, my 3 were emergencies. I want to have a 4th one approved by the board. I wouldn't wait to the day.
That's a good point, right, to prophylactically approve it.
So I want to share this because it's one of the information that was very clear. So this has to do with policy 103A, correct?
Well, it was 103A is the section. but
Is the section.
Policy is 23.
Okay, so this does not nullify the former standing when it comes to video conferencing, which is allowed, which means that you can join so far as you make your location public to the community and they can attend, and anyone can attend, and it's added to the location here. You can sit on your backyard or something and people can come in and and make the location known publicly together with the location here, and you can vote and still be at video conference. So, and as often as, so far as there's quorum on the ground. So this does not nullify that specific, that opening. That's what the lawyer said. I asked that particularly. However, when you do not want to give your location, which is what the 103A, section 103A is trying to sort of accommodate, then that's where we wanted to bring it back here and see the way forward. So far as I'm concerned, there was 2 concerns that we had discussed prior, which is the abuse part, and then how do we really determine what is an what term did they use? What is extraordinary or whatever? So with that, I think it makes sense that we put that kind of restriction, which is 3 times. Now, to Doreen's point about exceeding the 3 times, then please find some public space if you really want to vote, or else join like everybody else and not vote. So I think that we can start, and then we can put a clause in there that extraneous situations where it's exceeding 3, then the collective board can put it on an agenda item and say we vote for and then we can vote on it right there and then you can join and then vote if it's something that we feel like you're not just being frivolous about it. I think we can certainly put a clause there, but we will check with the lawyer back to the policy.
Okay, so then, it's a good point, that it's a combination. So then, Bill, do we have enough to put this back down to policy?
Well, it's a first read, and so, and I
Okay, so the additions can come.
And
Okay.
attorney had restructured this policy so that it makes clear exactly what Dr. Lang just said. Because section 1 is saying what Dr. Lang, that's the continuation, if you will. Section 2 is the entire new modification, and it would be in that section 2, I'm looking at what's in your material. It would be there to add a number limit if that's.
Oh, so all we're waiting on is a number limit then?
Well, that's up to you.
Okay,
See,
so.
That's
you
what we
decide.
brought back.
Right.
That's what we brought back.
That's what we
Okay,
brought
okay,
back.
I'm sorry,
Yes, I
so,
know Doug had mentioned
okay.
it. and
So it's,
the
it's
whole
state
cast.
policy that it's unlimited the number of times I
Right.
can say I'm at Syracuse University.
Right.
Visiting my
Yeah,
child
yeah,
every
yeah.
Tuesday, and anybody's welcome to come watch
Right.
me,
Yes.
even though we know that's
Yes.
a 6-hour.
Okay.
Unlimited times I can go to Syracuse University and have a public.
Correct.
So we're talking about I want to
Section
be
1.
private.
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to stay in my car
Yes.
and
Yes.
do this meeting when I'm moving.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And I think there should be a limit to the
Correct.
number of times.
Okay, and so
that
the whole
you-
cascade of accommodations you talk about is already in the policy, which
Correct.
is great.
But I had misstated the whole idea.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
why I wanted to clarify
I would
that.
like there to be a limit on the number of times
Mm-hmm.
you can attend a board meeting in
Without
your car while
disclosing. Mm-hmm.
driving, or in a location where you don't want visitors. And I
disclose,
don't
correct.
think,
Okay.
maybe that would change it, because maybe I wouldn't need to have a 4th time. If the 4th time,
Right.
go outside and
Be public.
make it public,
Exactly.
and it's unlimited, so.
Okay, so
I
you had
would like-
mentioned
I would like a
3.
number put in on the policy.
Then disclose.
You had mentioned 3, which I thought was, in the scheme of this is certainly reasonable. Should we just go around and see if we're comfortable with the number 3 to start with?
Yeah, how many meetings do we have a year? 10 times?
400.
24, 2 a month,
Yeah,
Right.
2 a month.
2 a monch.
minus a couple months.
Right, so 20? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So would people feel good about a 3?
Yeah, 3 with the contingency that if something comes up and you need to get it, if the board, overwhelming,
Jeremy, you don't
majority of
need
the board
to,
agrees to it, then that's okay.
you don't need to worry. When you vote no,
Alright.
you're a minority, so what's your?
So, we're not voting on it.
No, it's a first read.
It's
But
a first
but
read,
we have
yeah.
consensus on 3 as a,
It's fine with me.
okay, so we'll put that.
So,
So I'll vote against my own just to stay in it.
I'm sorry,
Well-
What do you want
Melissa,
it to be?
Melissa D is trying to.
Oh, I see.
Hard
You're
that
okay
she
with 3
speaks,
though?
so let's listen
Would
to
you
her.
prefer 2, you mean, or no? Okay.
Suzanne Volpe, we're just telling her to add the limit of 3,
Correct.
but not about the board voting on an additional one.
Why can't we
Yeah, we're
have it
not
put that?
doing the voting on the fourth one.
Because we're covered, right?
We're just
Because
going
we have a
public.
good-
There's an important
Normally,
budget meeting.
Right.
We have, the accommodations
Get out of your
are
car and
justifiable.
say
and-
that you're on 86th Street.
Right.
Let's try it. I mean, if it doesn't work, we can always
Right, we'll
change it,
see.
so.
Because it would be awkward to put your colleagues on the spot and say that, won't you vote the fourth time for me?
Yeah.
Even the verbiage, it's gonna be hard to.
Yeah.
so-
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's give
Sounds
it a
good.
whirl like that.
Right, so ahead of the second read, we'll make that modification that Melissa D just summarized quite well.
Okay. The second policy we're looking at, 5420, has to do with immunization of students. Any sort of nutshell characterization of where this went
No,
or came
it's,
from?
It's about, if I can jump in, guys, and
Sure.
then you can tell me if I'm wrong. It's basically about the, yeah, and it's not about COVID or anything, it's about the approved vaccines from the state that kids have to get. So it's just saying, it's about rules and regulations about that, and there's a little bit of in there about, children who are experiencing homelessness. They might not have it tracked with doctors, so they have a little bit of a leeway in terms of getting that information to people. Correct? Right, guys? Did I get that right?
And most of
It's
the religious
federal.
exemptions have been crossed
Eliminated.
out.
Yeah,
Eliminated
they're gone.
2 years
Yes.
ago, I think.
Yeah, and what we
Yeah.
discovered, what the root of this was that concern that polio in the New York City area was
Oh, right.
increasing, and we're close enough. So I actually went and reached out, and then our nurse flagged that this policy was out of date because it still included the religious exemption. So that's what brought this to get fixed. So this was rooted in state mandated immunizations.
Thank you.
And then the part about homeless is rooted in federal law about McKinney-Vento, that's the law, and then how you have to respond. So
Okay.
this is actually a good catch. It's not a required policy, but any district that doesn't have it is not being smart, frankly. So I think it's very clear now, and it's up to speed, up to date, excuse me, and up to
I
speed.
think that we
I
did have
like
some
that,
discussion
speak.
around, and maybe the wording could change a little bit, just the intent of it, it's
Yes.
based in different laws, the homeless versus the requirement for immunization, but it's to protect the individuals in the event, the individuals that are compromised for whatever reason and have kind of don't have to get immunized in the event of an outbreak. So I think
Okay.
that might be good to put up front, to kind of explain the intent behind it. Otherwise, you read it as if you're kind of
Unit is
approving
fine.
something that's really required by law,
Yeah.
right? It was just the way it was written could be a little bit adjusted, I thought.
Yeah, we certainly talked about that. When we finished talking about it, I thought about it more. I'm such a crazy thinker, but I'm not sure what you think about this. But although it has two sides to it. One is protect the individuals and also the people, because then your body can serve as a crucible that will proliferate the disease and spread it out. My concern is, I was thinking about the wording, and I'm saying that if a parent should say that, well, it's my child, and my child don't need protecting, I want my child to come to school, then how are we going to enforce that federal law? Because we have in the clause that we are protecting the child, and the parent has more right to the child than the school. So it may be a little bit tricky than
If I may,
Yeah.
I think it's very clear.
we should just leave it as is.
Yes, I would
Yeah,
leave it as is,
That's what I
because the
thought.
point of
yeah.
this is you are required to be immunized to be in school per state requirements. And then the rest are where there are those rare cases where you need a caveat. And one caveat being religious, which is gone. So I would urge us just to leave this as is unless there's some strong feelings.
So anyway, I wanted to
Yeah.
share this with you.
Yeah, and Dr. McPherson, maybe, I think close to the end, during an outbreak of a communicable disease, if that went kind of up front, that might
Yes,
set
I
the tone
remember
a little
that,
bit better.
yeah.
Well, but can we, well, I don't want to belabor this, but I guess we can go back to Suzanne, but the point of the law is not just during outbreak, but it's because I don't want families to say, well, why do I have to be immunized now? There's no outbreak. Well, the state law has said that regardless, you have to be immunized. I'm not saying the word right. Immunized.
It's public
So-
school, but you can't come here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lead sentence is the lead sentence.
Yeah.
And then there's flexibility, because that during an outbreak is, because that's shifting when the commissioner may say, now we're going to another level here.
All right, I mean,
So-
it's a local policy anyway, so we have leeway.
The way that you said state policy.
No, I mean, but it's not required, so we have
Oh,
leeway
got it,
to
got it.
how we structure.
Right, but it's making clear how we approach a
Yeah,
required.
I mean, yeah, we can go with it as it is, and,
Requires sanction,
okay.
We had to update anyway, because, right, it's out of date, I think. That was.
Right.
yes.
Right.
With the religious part, yes.
Right,
Okay. So, we're not voting on those, okay.
correct.
We are voting on number 12, resolution. This is to set a public hearing to establish our right to have, live voting via video conferencing. This New York State requirement that we have a public hearing on this, right? Or to allow it. So are there any questions about it or any comments? Is there a motion to approve the resolution for a public hearing?
So,
Is there a second? Is that- That's coming up. All in favor? Aye. Okay. New business, this was a memo about the change to the leeway that the state is giving us as a taxing entity to change the senior citizen tax rate. We're not voting on anything here, right? This is informational, right?
Right, but a lot, now we have information that I think a lot of districts are gonna be moving to possibly adopt this, and it has to be adopted by the next meeting. I just found out tonight with, like, the town doesn't have all the data, but they tried to provide some level of data on what they, believe to be the people that, what the shifts would be, although they're saying it's, don't hold them to it, but it gives us some sense of it. Currently, we have 40 people who are operating under the old table, which is with the maximum income levels of that high $30,000 that are homeowners. So we have about 40 people eligible. They receive that plus a senior start. Those 40 people, currently that equates to about $10 million worth of exemptions and taxes. They anticipate, or they're projecting, that we would have another, she said they're guesstimating, they think we'll have another 80 people eligible, so bringing that number up to at least 120 people that will be eligible, with another about $14 to $15 million worth of additional exemptions, tax exemptions, based upon the range. Some people would, you don't know whether it be 5 or 50%, but kind of using what the data they do have, without having everyone's actual income levels. But, I mean, the one thing is, and it was stated earlier in the memo that I shared with you, those income levels have not been increased in over 15 years. So when even actually the town assessor goes, you're one of the only people who's worked long enough to remember when they increased it. I said, oh, thanks, She actually did say that, because I'm like the only person who's she's been in the town that long, and so have I. But that is true that up until 15 years ago, that amount was raised each year. So, I mean, in some ways, had that just occurred consistently, we would be right now at $25 million worth of exemptions. It's because I guess for some reason they just didn't increase it, and then of course a lot of people who were eligible probably many years ago, were unable then, or not eligible. So, what they're proposing now is just to try to create a scale that would reflect kind of that increase, a balanced increase over 15 years. I mean, arguably it would have been higher, like if you would have just kept increasing it. But with that, if you look at the dollars that represents, I mean, roughly, not knowing, because you could have more people in, whether they're going to get a 55, 10%, I don't know. But again, based upon current numbers, it would be close to like a 1% shift to other people, a little bit less than 1%. Because
So
it would
1%, can we put a number
so
on that,
if
like a
you were
ballpark?
to take like another $15 million worth of assessed valuation, that's going to be exempt completely, right? Saying that we're going to lose, because that, even with the range that they anticipated would be like $15 million, kind of a reduction of $15 million. So it's roughly like $300,000 or so of tax
Shifted
dollars
over.
that shifts, and then because our 1% on our budget, it may be higher than 3. It's like 340.
We tax our community about 40 million. It's what we get from our, we have a almost $60 million budget, and in the 40s is what we ask our residents, not that we
Well,
have
40
a lot of.
They pay 45.
Right, they
But
pay
it's
45.
based on the assessed valuation too, is like over 2 billion, so.
But we ask our
Yeah, I know,
community to
I
pay
did the math. It's
$45 million, so
$300,000.
1% of that would be $450,000. But if the numbers were less than 1%, it
Yeah, that's what
could.
I'm saying, it's like roughly less, it's like 300 and change, again, that's based upon, but you know, even, I'd rather just say, play it safe and say like 1%.
Okay.
Because last year, 1% of our budget was like 365, or
Okay.
whatever it was, so.
If it matters to anybody, I just looked up and saw that 37,399 in 2007 is the equivalent of 53,536 today.
Okay,
So I
so
guess
that's
that's how
pretty
they
close.
figured it
That's
out.
pretty
So
close.
that's how they did that range,
Yeah.
I guess.
So
Thank you.
I would be hesitant to rush this for November. I think one thing that's not clear is, the focus on income instead of wealth. And I know it's geared for our senior citizens who get the second star. And I think, 40 community members are getting either a 5% exemption if they're near the top of that range, or 50%. But it's a simple wording of what we know is possible. You know, your income can be small and your net assets can be quite large.
Really good point.
So we're exempting another 80 families possibly who might just be, not the value of all of our homes. Not all homes are worth $500,000. And a community, we do want to keep, we want to allow people to age in place and enjoy their homes. But there is a challenge in just putting it at, an income level, because if you are just getting Social Security, you're going to be under that number.
Yeah.
For a lot of people who are making $3,000 a month or $4,000 a month Social Security. But you might have assets that allow you to not shift the burden to other community members.
I mean, you did see in the list what was counted in terms of income, right? So
Yeah.
if you just
That's what I
have
wanted to
money in
ask.
the bank, but if you have, interest income is counted, if you're getting distributions from like certain things, so that is counted as income, so.
Okay.
To
that's what
Jeremy's
I
point, it would
wanted
have to be like that you just have a good amount of money in the bank and you have Social Security and have no other, typically people have like large assets would typically have some level of other income coming in. So, I mean, again, it is tricky. I think you don't know. I do know that the town and village has already adopted it, and only now with the additional information, people seem to be trying to kind of guesstimate what the impact will be. I did see other districts saying that they would be likely, I'm just telling you the information.
Likely to adopt or not?
Well, many of them are
Likely to
saying
put
that
it
they're
forward.
bored based on some of them were already willing to do it anyway, because.
Just functionally,
Yeah.
one quick question. You said November, will we have another board meeting to vote on it? Or
Yeah, so just,
Okay.
and I also wanted to just explain timing, and again, I was asked to do this. So if you were to adopt it in November, people would not receive these, because that changes the assessment for the 2023 assessment, which really is the funding for the
The following.
24-25 budget. So
Okay.
people actually, even if you delay it, even if you adopted it now, people won't get those breaks till 24-25. So if you were not to adopt now and do another year, then you're talking about 25-26. Again, I'm just saying for the senior citizens. And the other thing that the assessor, which again is what she's telling us as the person who knows kind of a little bit more on these things, her guess, she said, although this is their guesstimate on who would be eligible, they also don't believe that we would start seeing, because typically it takes people a couple years, like even like when we do
Apply for it.
veterans exemptions here. I don't know if the board members here are aware of that. People who are veterans in this community, regardless of income level, do receive assessment.
10%.
Breaks. And actually, that's a sliding scale that could be even higher in time. So again, that could be somebody who's young, really that's something. So, but as an example, even when that first went into play, like not everybody was like signed up for it. So they're anticipating, even if districts, including ours, were to opt in, they think it would probably be like a lagging. It wouldn't be like
Sure.
all 80 people would sign up tomorrow. Again, it's just a guess. I know it's a very hard decision. I just wanted you to be
So,
clear that there
Can,
will be.
So can I say, especially because we,
Yeah, I have a
we're
couple
down
of
one
questions.
board member, can we move this forward to
We
another?
can't move this forward is how I'm reading it. We need to decide what you as president or us as a board want to put on our next meeting, which is the 1st of November.
I have
And the
a,
challenge is if we don't do it this year, we can do it next year.
But if you feel like the 25,
Right,
26.
there's a delay, but if we don't do it this year, we would be doing it next year, and that could be because the governor or because the state legislator didn't do it in a way that our town is able to give us an impact analysis. 40 to 120 families, that's a significant impact, and is there a desire to do this quickly because it could be straightforward, it hasn't moved in 15 years? Because if we don't put it on the agenda, might as well just be put on the agenda of 20 meetings from now.
But could it be put on the agenda but voted down next time?
Well, you can always vote
Right.
anything down on the
Right.
agenda.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, I'm okay with waiting a year until we have impact analysis. I'm not sure why, we feel comfortable knowing that income at 1%, savings rates, you don't get a lot of income from your wealth. You have wealth, you live in a town with assets. We have 40 families that hopefully are getting the appropriate exemptions from senior star, regular star, and
So your point, so that,
I'm not interested in having this on
can I-
the board meeting next week.
Damaris, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you.
so I want to get a clarifying thing. Assets, so the income is not just social security that they are looking at.
No.
They are looking at cash flow, correct?
Income is income. It's just
No,
a
but,
word.
but you said, you talked about assets.
Number three, the link,
Correct.
it's salary, bank account interest, stock dividends,
Correct.
bonuses,
Exactly.
pensions,
So
net
that,
rental
so that's
income.
what I'm, so exactly, so I heard Jeremy say something, that people may have assets, it doesn't mean it's bringing cash flows, depending on what. So if they are considering all of that to be able to determine who is eligible or not, and we are talking about our seniors, right? This is a very practical, equitable step about our seniors that have been contributing. They are not saying they are not going to contribute, but they are contributing, and they are going to be offered breaks, not those that are having a higher cash flow and income. These are individuals that when they see all the cash flow coming in, this is what they've got. I want to say that sometimes there's the understanding that, and again, hopefully we all age to that, but we have to consider that with seniors, the social structure that they have is equally important to their sanity. And if we are thinking that if they cannot be, they are not able to continue where they've lived all their lives and they are being uprooted, let me go a little bit personal here. My neighbor right across, that was the honeymoon house for 7 years. The one that was right next door, I love Hastings because people just stayed and lived here forever till they died off. She lived till 92, and I checked on her every day, and she knew us, the family, whatever it is. It was just something that their neighbors are their family. So just uprooting them only because they cannot stay here is a whole lot, even from the medical lens of social services. So again, if we are looking at people that we have considered every single money that is coming in as income, not just social security, and then there are these individuals that are really low bottom, I think it's something that we should consider in a more favorable way of supporting them that way. If veterans are getting 10% and all of those things, when they may have more income than our senior citizens who cannot work, even if they want to work and make more money, they simply cannot. So we have to look at it more closely.
Thank you. Maureen, I had a question. I'm curious if there's any jurisdictional concerns, like residential concerns, like, you have districts, desirable districts where a child will live with a family member or not really live. Do you have any concerns about if we create a sort of a different status that might become a jurisdictional issue for the school? Does that make sense? Where does the child reside? Where?
So are you talking about in terms of senior citizens? So if each year, the people that are claiming this exemption, we get a list of addresses and we compare it. If there's a child living in that home, they would not be eligible because for the most part, that would mean that either the parent
yes.
was living there, so they would be like living with extended family. So that is part of the exemptions for schools, that they're not eligible if they have children attending the school.
Okay, so there's a
Living in that
fail-safe on
household.
that.
You
So there
said
is-
that both ways. You said they wouldn't be eligible because you're assuming there would be a parent there earning income? Or they're just straight out not
Well,
eligible?
no, both, they wouldn't be, I mean, right, so my assumption is that's why they do it. I mean, I guess there could be a circumstance where a grandparent, but I guess in that circumstance, they would be receiving some type of like aid, they'd be receiving money towards raising that child. too,
So you
know?
can't get
So
the
anyway,
exemption
if there's
and,
a child living in that home, we mark it, and then those people are not eligible.
okay, got it.
And
They're
on top,
not
especially
eligible by
when,
law or
By
because
law,
you
no, no,
expect
not
that
because of
there's
me,
more income
because
coming
it's
in?
not, it actually says it, that that's not my law, that's like the law, that if you have a child attending the school, then you would not be eligible for that. And I'm assuming that the rationale is that either they're receiving income for that child, or there's other people, like, we don't go around policing, like, is there potentially somebody who could have an adult child living in their house with them, and they have income, and they're not, tied to that household?
Could have.
Yeah, I guess that could happen.
Well, you could have people senior citizen age who have kids in schools.
Right. But they work, so you're not eligible.
Right.
I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about me.
Right.
But if you
You could-
see, I mean, it's
This is New
very
York
clear,
State.
so income, proofs of income, so if, you
Yeah,
know,
I think
So-
the law is the
Yeah,
law,
the
so.
law-
Yeah, I have a question, Maureen, because Jeremy said that, I thought, so here's what I thought. So if we approve this, then we lose 300,000
Yep.
about an income. And I thought that was it, so then our budget might have to go down by 300,000. But then Jeremy, you said that other people would have to
No,
pick
it's
it
a
up.
redistribution of taxes to other people.
Our
Oh.
budget
Oh, it
never
is.
has, our
No.
budget never has to go down.
Yeah, it has to go, but, right.
Exactly. Our
It
budget
changes
gets,
that. What it
our
does is-
budget
But
gets.
sorry, I'm trying to understand how,
So can I
So it's-
explain? So it reduces
Got it.
the assessed valuation.
I
and
understand.
Pushes up the tax rate.
okay,
and other
so,
people's
sorry, I
tax
missed that part. Okay, so
And
they
my point
pay
was
less,
that-
and then it goes through everybody else to
And
pay
my
more.
point
Got
is
it.
that 1% of our,
Yeah, got it.
1% of our revenue is $450,000.
Right, so if we
And
agree,
it
then
says
they
that
have to
we
reassess.
do not have impact analysis. So, the tax base going up by 450,000 would be another, 1%. It wouldn't look like it's falling underneath that tax cap because it's just a shift of it. We'd still be raising the same amount of revenue. It
Yeah,
wouldn't,
I get it. I didn't
wouldn't run
understand
into
how
it.
other people
But
paid
it
for
would
it.
be, well, I think it was accurate the way he said it, it'd be a redistribution of who's paying for the $45 million
And
that,
again, these amounts are based upon, I mean, she wrote it all red to everyone, like, these are the best estimate.
Right.
I don't know if the town, quite frankly, because they would need all the income data. well, as
Which they don't
the town.
have.
They don't have it. I don't know whether they'll ever be able to, I mean, I didn't get the sense that we were ever gonna get anything that was more
No.
comprehensive.
I mean, in
And
a basic,
I literally spoke to her up until like 6:25, so.
Right.
the town budget's $10 million or $12 million. Our budget's,
No, it's a huge impact for us.
our budget's $57 million.
Right, but
When
if you-
people talk about taxes, they're talking about their school taxes.
Yeah.
Their town, their village, their county taxes,
Right.
it's a surprise that it keeps. adding
So-
up.
How many families are there?
can I put some numbers
Sure,
to
yeah,
this? So roughly 2,700 domiciles in
Yeah,
Hastings.
I just, so,
Okay?
$100 a person.
So with $450,000, if we're talking about 120 domiciles shifting over, the tax bill for the non-exempt, depends on the rate,
Well-
it would go up about 150 or so
Yeah.
dollars per non-exempt domicile. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's actually, I mean, it's currently, we have 40, so it's an additional 80 or something.
Oh, okay,
But
I
again,
gotcha.
and they're basing it, I mean, obviously, there's a lot more senior citizens that live here than that number, but I think
they're probably, my guess is that they're looking at what we get for Senior Star, and Senior Star also has income limitations. So I know people who live here are seniors who would not be eligible for Senior Star because they exceed, which is like 65,000 in taxes. So we know based upon our residents that we have more seniors and that this is a group that they believe based on the senior, you know, that they would fall into these income thresholds. That's what they're kind of using as a basis.
Jeremy, you know, I see the complication. The only thing is, I don't know that we're ever going to have any more data, you know, because the town doesn't, or they don't track income level. I'm sorry. They don't track.
Yeah,
income.
I had concerns that were related to other stuff besides the data.
Okay.
I don't believe income's the only measure of wealth in this community. Certainly, people's residence is a huge factor. We have added villages where we're letting senior citizens rent out their homes. You know, it just seems like we have 40 families that are getting 40, not families, 40
Households.
community members who are getting this right now. If it went up to 120, I don't know, you know, what's going on with those 80. It's a very strange scale that you get 50% at one number and every $1,000 you lose another 5%.
But Jeremy, you are
It's a-
basing it on something that is quite non-factual, because again, Maureen just explained that the income is whatever they are getting. So if senior citizens are
It's
renting
not
their homes.
It's not non-factual. It's
No, hear me out and address it directly. So this is the case
I
where.
didn't say that senior citizens are renting
No,
out their
I'm
homes.
saying you use it as an example right now that.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Income is income.
Income is income, and
If you're getting Senior Star, you're getting Star. If you don't qualify for this, there's ways to stay in your home.
how?
Sorry.
If you have other assets, that's what we do. We spend assets.
Assets cannot, or not all assets convert to cash flow. Now, you are paying the tax, you need to pay it with money. Not all assets are cash flow, and if it's cash flow, they will catch it. So
It's called income, yeah.
It's called income. So and again, they cannot qualify without all that information being vetted. So the concern you're addressing makes sense if they are going to do a rom-shoddy job in determining who's going to get it. They cannot. They have to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted based on all the income that individual is making. So these are all estimates. We are talking about those that truly qualify, not those that have hidden assets here and there.
These aren't hidden assets.
I'm
But
just-
can
Guys,
I just bring up
wait,
one
wait, one
point that I
second.
think is important? Okay, go ahead.
Just because it's getting late.
Yeah.
Just functionally, we have just really two decisions to make, really. We can agree to put it on the agenda for next time, and if with the full participation of the board, we can just vote it down.
Exactly.
And then come back to it, we can then vote on it the following year.
Right.
So you
Do we
know,
have that time?
Yeah, so if you, to Alex's point, we could put it on the agenda, if it gets voted down, then people wouldn't get it for, which is the earliest, which would be 24-25 school year, not even next budget. Then you would bring it up next November, and then it would be for the 25-26. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it is good to review the materials, because I know what you're saying, because in some ways, income does not include, like, if you had a large inheritance, then like that, you could have $2 million in the bank. So it is tricky, but it's like all the things that.
Can I
Right.
just make one
Sure, of
point
course,
though?
of course.
So it
Is
is
that
a
I
bit tricky.
just think that we have to consider that if we thought that $37,399 was the appropriate amount in 2007, then there's no reason why 50,000 whatever is not the appropriate amount today, because it's the same amount of money.
that's a fair argument. To Jeremy's point,
Yeah.
I feel like I just hate rushing into making a
No, I
decision.
get it. I'm just saying,
Right.
I think that puts it into perspective for me, is that we're really just saying, we're approving a cost of inflation increase to this. It's not really, we're not saying it's $100,000. We're saying it's the same as it was in 2007 when everybody thought it was okay.
With all
Right.
these restrictions.
Jeremy, let me ask you a question, and I'll ask everybody, of course, but would you be comfortable putting this on the agenda for next time with the idea that if we are uncomfortable, we can vote it down?
We can always vote anything down.
Okay.
I don't, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if there's 4 people that
Are
want to
there-
put it on the agenda, it's probably because they also want to vote it positively. We don't put things on the agenda to vote it down. I'm just voicing my opinion that I
Okay.
don't think there's 80 more residents in town that need to shift their burden to the other people who are paying school tax. Part of being in this community is paying the tax. We have 40 people that are getting an exemption. I'm okay continuing it with those 40.
Any other comments about where we're at? Because there are only 6 of us here tonight.
That's, 6 is fine.
I mean,
You can't wait.
I have
It's either on or it's not.
board
Okay.
meetings and no one said
So,
only 6 of us.
do we have-
It's just
Okay,
go for it.
so, any,
Put it on for next time.
okay, that's what I'm asking. Okay, so is there, let me go back
It's not
to
a
the.
There's no
motion,
motion,
you're
it's
just.
just
Oh,
discussion.
okay. Oh, I'm
We're
sorry.
just-
We're just saying.
Do
we're
you
gonna
hear,
have
do
it
you
on the
hear enough
agenda.
voices as president and vice president to recommend that it goes on? Anybody can ask for something to be put on.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Are you hearing
I say
enough
that,
voices that people
I say that we-
want to-
I say that we
Maureen,
put-
Sylvia, do you want, Sylvia, you said you want to put it on. Maureen, do you want to?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of it.
yeah, so we put it on, it gives us a week to hear from the community, or so what the wrinkle comes up, and then we haven't closed off any of our options in the next, 2 weeks, the next meeting, so, okay. So,
And then I think you'll also have, because a lot of this information was literally just hot off the presses, and I
yeah,
did see in my email chain that different
So hopefully
districts,
more will have shaken out.
right, and I already have
Right.
seen where other districts either who have already, we're kind of leaning toward doing it, or already doing it anyway, and I
Okay.
think, obviously, I mean, if that seems, not that you have to do anything everybody else is doing, but it was similar with the veterans,
Yeah,
like, I
we
think
can-
once.
We can update you.
yeah,
You know,
that's
people
perfect, that
I
works.
I did think this was on the Board of Trustees.
It is, they already
agenda.
voted
Did
it
they?
up.
Oh, so they
Yeah, that
did
was
it
already-
this week, and they said
And the
yes,
town
okay.
did it
Yeah.
already,
Moving on to new business items, B, salaries of non-represented staff. We've been through this, are there any comments or questions? Or should we wait for Doreen to get back?
I would.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
jump ahead if you want.
All right, let's jump ahead. Second public comment. It's as empty as it was, so we'll skip ahead. Agenda items this is for next time, Dr. McCarthy?
Yeah, we always do this quickly here,
Yeah.
looking ahead, and I already hinted what we're gonna recommend you do with the budget, because you don't want to get a budget workshot at 10:15, 10:20
Probably
at
not.
night. It's not fair to you or the purpose. You've done it before, but I would not recommend it. And by the way, when I get home at 11 o'clock at night, the Greenwich board is still roaring, but
Oh, my
that's not a
goodness.
good model. And I just said that.
Nothing good
I
happens
just
after
said that
10.
publicly, and I'm proud I said it. So,
Maybe they start at 8:30?
After a 14-hour day.
Yeah, I know, it's like I've been here since 7.
You can run to public comment over there.
anyway, on the 9th, you have scheduled a budget work session, and I'll do a quick, you may already have looked at it, but we'll use tonight's presentation in 2 weeks,
Okay.
and now you can look at it, any questions, all the rest. I think it'll work really well for all concerned.
And it'll stay live, so yeah.
Yep, stay live, look at it, study it, and I'll explain it a wee bit when Doreen comes back. Next, and the 9th, we'll be efficient with it. We'll make sure you don't have any, we'll let you focus on the budget on the 9th. There's be this little bit from Amy on the National Blue Ribbon, but I think we'll keep our administrative reports either non-existent, because you get the Friday notes from us, so I think we can just use that, so there's time for the budget workshop. And then all right, I think that, we will add an executive session, I think. I'll talk with your officers about that.
Okay.
That's the upcoming agenda.
Okay, so we're going to wait for Doreen to get back to vote on the new business, so we'll just go to board comments. Are there any board comments?
Yeah, I'll start it off. Looking forward to our large committee meeting tomorrow, and I really like the way the special ed presentation. I think it really put a nice a focus on it, and I hope that continues. Like you said, Hastings does not focus on academic performance, and the challenge is that's the easiest data number to look at. And when they come back with their solutions or their suggestions, it's tough to do what we try to do as a community. And I think Hastings focuses on creating a positive environment where there's opportunities that can lead to students feeling like they can belong and they know what they want to succeed in. And I really, I'm very encouraged by, of course, the portrait of learning discussion we have here and our focus on special education. I teach math, I know numbers, I like data, and Hastings does not focus on performance in the ways that are easiest to judge. And the challenge is always to have confidence that we are succeeding in creating an environment where students will be encouraged and supported to succeed. So all the best for those 2 days of the meetings, and I hope that maintains our focus. We do not look at those magazines that want to tell us which number put us in third or fourth. I think there's a lot of good things in our community that are tough to rank.
Thank you, Jeremy. We skipped to board comments because you were absent.
Oh, sorry.
So, I mean, momentarily absent. Sorry.
I did have, I
Sure,
guess,
Maureen.
maybe a question or for future, perhaps curriculum, I'm not sure what category it is, but, and I agree with everything you said, Jeremy, but I was curious because there were a lot of news stories yesterday about the unprecedented declines in math and English across all states and everything. So I'm just wondering does that just kind of everybody figure it out, what it means for you? Or
Well,
would
no,
that create-
I can speak to that quickly, and Melissa can follow in. This is actually the first district I've been in that has not been randomly selected to be in NAEP. So when those results came out, I came roaring into the office going, we better be ready, and everyone said, what are you talking about?
We're not part of that.
So anyway, National Assessment for Educational Process, the nation's report card, is arguably the best measure of how we're doing. So I think that's why there's a lot of concern right now. It's the 4th and 8th graders. You're randomly selected to be in it. It's quite a heavy lift when you're asked to, so it's actually good Hastings has not been asked. Camilla Dawkins, for one, is right. She said she's been in a district where it's happened. So, and it came up today in this major meeting, and the concern in that meeting from someone who's very thoughtful as Richard Lemons is, it's almost what Jeremy said. I mean, you want to focus on the data and the outcomes, but if you kind of look where we are, that's almost taking the eye off. I mean, we have to be strong in that. So the simple answer is right now, that's out there. You're going to get an update in a couple of weeks on our progress academically and, on assessments. It'll be a different set, and that'll give us a handle a bit. But I think in general, we do need to look at the impact of the pandemic and all the rest, and we've been doing that through other measures. So, but NAEP, but just to be clear, and we did a few calls on it, that NAEP data, that's not picking up Hastings in any way. It's picking up New York State from a randomly set number of districts. I don't know if that helps at all.
Gotcha. So you're randomly selected to be part of their pool that the
Yes.
data is based on?
Yeah, it's a extensive online testing process, grades 4 through 8. So if your district's picked, when I was super in Weston, we were picked. Greenwich, I think, at some point was picked. And you drop everything you're doing for those couple days to take this assessment. And then that's what's folded into this rather large data set. It's seen as pretty valid and reliable.
Thank you, Maureen.
But
any
you
follow-up?
can't necessarily then say, okay, in Hastings, this is how we're doing at all. You can't.
Compared to that, we have other metrics, obviously, right?
Yes, and we're going to do that. I think it's in
If I can ask
4 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that.
quick question, sort of leading from her point, not on the NAEP or NAEP. Do we have aggregated, or do we track aggregated ACT or SAT data for our schools? Okay, because the other interesting report was about college readiness from last week and ACT, which you don't have to get into tonight, but just to know that we do have that, for future discussion.
Dr. Mackenzie, would they like schools that were blue ribbon schools and all of that within this 4 to 8 grade?
The NAEP tends to report out at typically statewide, well, nationwide, statewide, and they do pick up some districts, but they don't tend to drill down into other, yeah.
Categories?
Yeah, I mean, if your district was in that random pool, I think you can then track how your particular district did, but they're not.
They are not giving that. I
No,
know
they-
correlation is not causation, but it's just like, I'm just wondering, like, which level are they looking at in order to make that assessment with a random thing as well?
Yeah.
But you make a good point, and Hillside couldn't have gotten the Blue Ribbon nomination without the data points
Correct,
recommended by the.
correct.
Okay. And we'll have a report on that on how the sort of backstory, right, coming up. Yeah. Are there any other Board of Education comments? No? So we're going to circle back to new business B, voting on the salaries of non-represented staff. Is there a motion to approve the salaries of non-represented staff? Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Is there a motion, I think we've completed the whole big agenda. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Did Bill want to say something about
Oh,
the
I'm
budget
sorry.
work session?
Yeah, just say we.
Oh, sorry. we have
Good
to
night,
do
you're
that
right,
after
you're right,
this
yeah,
first,
you're right,
sorry.
though. No,
Oh,
sure.
right,
Did you
yes,
wanna
you're
do
right,
that?
go ahead.
Oh, adjourn it first?
Well, I think if we just go down the agenda. what
Oh,
we
okay,
should
it
do.
does come in next, right, all right. Is there
Yeah.
a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah, so moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Gavel? We're done. So, just picking up on that, on the budget presentation.
Yeah, so I'll just.